Alrighty, this is part 4. Hours 12. I guess this would be 12 through 15. Hours 12 through 15. I hope you're all ready for some good videos. We just double check, make sure that the last part is uploading. Real quick, go back to YouTube.
Hello everybody, today we are going to be talking about the mass hysteria iceberg. Mass hysteria is most often described as an enhanced feeling of fear or panic that is transmitted through a population by either a real or perceived threat. The most common cases that we think of when it comes to mass hysteria tend to be about news reporters giving wrong information and causing people to freak out, or world leaders telling people that they're about to be invaded when they're actually not, etc. However, as we're going to see from this iceberg, mass hysteria is not exclusive to that and also includes things like psychosomatic illnesses. In other words, whenever someone thinks they have an illness and their body begins to show symptoms of it. Hysteria has led to some of the weirdest events in human history, and we're going to talk about some of them today. A couple things to note before we get started. For one, I am going to be using this iceberg pretty much as a guideline. Or in other words, I'm really interested in stories of mass hysteria where there seemed to be a very small or non-existent threat that caused a bunch of people to freak out, rather than like overreactions. For example, the first tier in this iceberg is stuff like Y2K or the Red Scare in the United States and other cases where people just kind of overreacted, and that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the weird stuff. So for that reason, I'm cutting out the first tier and we'll be using the majority of the iceberg while skipping over a few other terms. For example, one of the terms on a later tier is dihydrogen monoxide scares, which is just whenever news reporters said that there was dihydrogen monoxide in the water as a joke, and people freaked out. Not really mass hysteria, just people being dumb. And as always on this channel, if I don't think it's interesting and don't think it's worth my time to relay to you, then I'm not going to talk about. However, there is another YouTuber who, in research for this iceberg, I figured out that they followed a slightly revised version of this iceberg to a T, and that is That Dane. I will link his video in the description. He has a ton of really cool icebergs on his channel, and his video over this iceberg was really good, so if you want to know about more of those points I skip over, check him out. I will also be adding some of my personal favorite cases of mass hysteria to this iceberg, because again, I think they're cool. The other thing I want to mention is as this iceberg goes down, we're going to get into some that are related to religious miracles or spiritual experiences, and if at any point in this video you feel that I'm discrediting your beliefs because it's under the label of mass hysteria, I am not saying that I am right and you are wrong. I'm just going with the sort of standard story that science explains it as. That doesn't mean that these can't be supernatural experiences. I'm just talking about the generally accepted ideas. But with all that being said, stick around as we're going to talk about some of the weirdest cases of mass delusion and panic in human history. But first of all, I need to make an announcement. So for starters, let me fix this. Now that's better. I'm excited to announce the new film from writer Evan Royalty and director Stephen Hancock, SCP Heretic. If you're watching this channel right now, then you've probably heard about their previous works. The likes of SCP Dollhouse and SCP Overlord are some of the best movies ever put to YouTube. Not only are they incredibly well shot and edited movies in their own right, but they also serve as a love letter to the SCP community, one of the foundations of internet horror. Their new film, Heretic, is going to be the end of their trilogy and shaping up to be the biggest yet. Evan did a better job at describing the movie than I ever could, so I'm going to leave a link to his video about it in the description. There will be a link to the Heretic Kickstarter in the description. I myself will be donating, and any bit helps. And even if you can't donate, which is totally understandable, just sharing the Kickstarter Murder or the video introduction to Heretic itself will certainly help get the ball rolling. These movies serve as a testament of what can be done by independent creators on this website, which is why I'm so honored to be talking about it now. As a matter of fact, I have a video coming out in the near future about the other films that they have done, so stay tuned for that. But for now, check out Evan's previous videos and check out the links in the description and be on the ground floor of something really amazing. Thank you for listening. I love it at least a little bit as much as I do. So check that out. I hope that you enjoyed, and we are back to the video. Probably, unless this is going in before the ad. In which case, here's the ad. Well, let me stop you right there for a second. And then from there get a feel for what you may want to order for that month. And thanks to it, but as always, thank you for watching. There will also be a link to the original iceberg image in the description as well. And since I'm kind of breaking up the order of it and making it kind of my own, this is my tier 1. The strawberry sugar virus is related to a Portuguese TV show known as Strawberries with Sugar. The show was essentially a teen soap opera that dealt with high school kids and their day-to-day traumas. And for that reason, the show was watched by a primarily preteen and child audience. In an episode that aired in May of 2006, the characters in the show began to develop an intense sickness. In the episode, the characters began to develop symptoms such as dizziness, trouble breathing, and rashes over their body. In the following days, across 14 different schools in Portugal, over 300 middle and high school students began to develop dizziness, trouble breathing, and rashes over their body. This caused several schools to temporarily close, believing that the disease was an outbreak. However, other than a few kids who turned out were just having an algae attack, none of the children had any disease present in their body. Not only that, but the symptoms were only shown to be in middle school and high school students, meaning that this illness and its physical symptoms are believed to be entirely a case of mass hysteria across several kids in Portugal who just so happened to watch the same episode. The Dancing Plague of 1518 is probably the most famous case of mass hysteria, and there's good reason for it. In July of 1518 in Strasbourg, a woman only known in history as Frau Trophea began silently dancing in the middle of the town. Over the course of a week, she continued to silently dance in the middle of town, and about 36 people slowly joined her. Bystanders who saw the scene said that the people were not enjoying themselves, and as a matter of fact were very distressed and unable to stop moving. Doctors who showed up at the time, because understanding of medicine was limited at best, said that perhaps they just had really hot blood, because that was a thing that it was believed happened to people, and the best solution was to just dance even faster to get it out of their system. So to encourage more intense dancing, the town had a stage built and brought in musicians to play music, which made the problem a lot worse. With it becoming such a spectacle and now there being a performance at the same time, people began to join in on the dancing and were then unable to stop. This went on for 4 months, tallying up a total of 400 victims, with several of these people breaking their bones, collapsing, and even dying from exhaustion. Finally, in September, several of the men from the town began carrying the people who were still dancing up to the top of a mountain shrine where they were prayed over and assumedly stopped. The people of the time believed that Saint Vitus could curse people to the dancing plague, and some to even dance until they were dead. The historical guesses of the case aren't much better, as the 2 leading theories are perhaps it was a cult who secretly did this entire thing and danced until they were dead just to prove a point, or possibly a moldy bread that caused people to hallucinate, even though those exact symptoms have never been seen anywhere else in history. With no really good explanation of this case, many chalk it up to mass hysteria. The Hammersmith ghost refers to several sightings of a supposed ghost that would attack bystanders in Hammersmith, London. According to those that believed in the Hammersmith ghost, they said that someone had died in London the year before in 1802 and was not given a proper burial. Because of it, his ghost was attacking the people of the town. The official story was that it was a tall man wearing all white. However, there were several stories of the man having horns or glowing red eyes or wearing these long flowing white robes. Some of the earliest sightings were that of two women who on separate occasions said they ran into the ghost and were so freaked out in the days following that they died of shock. Other people who said they were just walking around Hammersmith said the ghost would run at them from alleys and begin screaming and shouting, and everyone was afraid that the ghost was going to eventually start killing people. Because of this, several night patrols began to form these small mob groups throughout Hammersmith, and at night would patrol the streets trying to catch the ghost. This culminated when Francis Smith was patrolling the streets with a shotgun and saw a bricklayer walking towards him in his all-white uniform. Francis, believing this to be the ghost, quickly said something to the effect of "What are you? Who are you?" before he fired and killed the bricklayer. In the court trial that followed, the bricklayer's wife said that she had told her husband that he needs to cover up his all-white uniform or else one of the mobs will think he's the Hammersmith ghost. Quick side note about that court trial, by the way, it was one of the weirdest in British history because the argument was that he was not guilty by reason of intent, but then the court had this really long argument where they eventually came to the conclusion that intent to kill something is just as good in a murder case as intent to kill the person. And the jury originally returned with a verdict of manslaughter, and the judge said that wasn't allowed because he was either acquitted or meant to kill the bricklayer, so they then gave him first-degree murder, which King ended up giving him 1 year of hard labor. So this guy went from manslaughter to first-degree to a year of work. It actually reshaped a lot of UK law and wasn't really settled until a 1984 Court of Appeal. Keep in mind, all this happened in 1804. Just fun story. During this trial, one man came forward saying that he was the Hammersmith ghost, but he had only ever dressed in a white bedsheet to scare somebody one time and never did it again, implying that perhaps while there was a ghost in the first place, the rest was just complete hysteria that ate up the town and made everyone go crazy. And after this court trial, there were no further sightings of the Hammersmith ghost. Junebug epidemic refers to a case in the 1960s at a textile factory in South Carolina. One day at this factory, the workers opened up a shipment from out of the country, to which whenever they opened it, a Junebug flew out. Later that day, a few workers complained of feeling nausea and dizziness as well as vomiting, and one of them identified having a bug bite on their arm. Connecting it to the aforementioned Junebug, several said that perhaps the Junebug had bit them and transferred some overseas sickness. In the next couple days, 62 people reported the exact same symptoms in the factory of vomiting, nausea, and dizziness, and some even had to be hospitalized. After going through thorough medical checkups, only a few of them had any bug bites on their body, and none of them had any notable diseases in their system. The official story is that patient 0 was bit by a bug, and being worried about the Junebug became ill from worry, to which after that, every subsequent person who became sick was simply sick on their own accord, meaning the Junebug epidemic was a phantom illness falsely blamed on a single Junebug. The 1983 West Bank fainting epidemic occurred on March the 21st of 1983. At a girls' school on the West Bank, 6 girls began coughing and feeling ill, saying that they smelled a foul odor. After this, other girls in the school also began coughing and saying that they could smell an odor as well. Several female soldiers came to escort these girls to a nearby hospital for a checkup, and during the escort, the soldiers reported similar symptoms as well. In all, on the first day, 32 people reported feeling sick, with some even fainting. Because of the intense political climate at the time, many of the nearby news sources began saying that this was a gas attack meant to kill or possibly sterilize the women at the school. Over the next few days throughout the West Bank, Tel Aviv, and Jerusalem, people began reporting feeling sick and being poisoned by the poison that was mentioned on the news, with some developing fits of vomiting, rashes, and passing out across all of these cities. At this point, it began affecting both sides of the Israeli-Palestine conflict, so much so that they were declaring open war over it, accusing the other of gassing their citizens. In all, 943 people were hospitalized, and the United Nations had to step in to determine what the cause was. It was determined that perhaps on the first day of all of this at the original school, perhaps there was a gas leak in the walls that caused the girls to become dizzy and feel faint. However, after this, despite 943 hospitalizations, there was no evidence of any gas or true vector of sickness in any cases reported. And the official story is that people were so worried by the events that took place at the school, a psychosomatic illness set in, and their body began developing symptoms that they thought they might acquire. The miracle of the sun occurred on October the 13th of 1917, when 3 local shepherd children said that Mother Mary was going to appear and perform miracles in Fatima, Portugal. According to these 3 children, they had spoken with Mother Mary, and she told them to round people up because she was going to make her power known before humanity. This went on for several weeks and became such a popular story in the region that it's confirmed historically that somewhere between 30 to 40,000 people showed up, with accounts at the time saying it was more than 100,000. According to all of the witnesses that were there that day, the sun began hurling itself down to earth before it stopped, zigzagged back up into place, and began shooting out colors of green, purple, blue, and other fiery apparitions. Many saw this as a legitimate miracle, and as a matter of fact, Pope Pius VII sent cardinals to check. No clue what they were looking at. I also have to mention that one of the lead scientific theories is that everyone just stared at the sun at the same time and didn't know what happens if you look at the sun.
Right.
And that's what the miracle was. Just people staring at the sun for 10 minutes and hallucinating a bunch of colors. We are now on to Tier 2, or at least the Tier 2 that I've butchered this iceberg and turned it into. So we don't know the exact year that the Meowing Nuns took place, because a book written in 1844 as part of the medical text described the story as a recollection and happening sometime in the Middle Ages. According to that story, there was a convent of nuns in Central Europe where one day, for seemingly no reason, one girl decided to meow. The other nuns around her, thinking it was funny, joined her in the meowing. This continued to spread until eventually every single nun in the convent would join together for several hours of the day and meow loudly. The people of the nearby neighborhood asked them to stop, to which they would...
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. I'm going to pause the broadcast. We're back. We're back. Okay, where's the video that I was playing? Where is it?
The people of the nearby neighborhood asked them to stop, to which they would reply with meows, and eventually the town conscripted an army of the nuns with whips and threatened to beat them if they didn't stop because it was so annoying. The nuns to stop, and the entire thing is considered mass hysteria in history. However, I like to think that this was just an elaborate troll, because that's hilarious. The Halifax slasher was a phenomenon that happened in Halifax, England in November of 1938. It began when two women rushed home one night saying that they had been attacked by a man who chased them with a mallet. After this initial story spread across the papers, other women began reporting that they were being chased by somebody, although at first the slasher never gained any victims. Although several women who had cut clothing said that the slasher had chased them and they just managed to get away as he would cut the hem of their clothes. This gave him the name of the Halifax slasher, and similar to the Hammersmith ghost, mobs began to be formed in the streets to stop this man who was almost attempting to kill women. This is all well and good up until they started falsely accusing people of being the slasher, because these mobs would be out at night and see like a guy walking alone and be like, there he is, get him, and then like a bunch of people got beat up over that. One guy who was new to Halifax was so berated by people who stood outside of his house chanting for his death that the police had to escort him to and from work. Around the time that it got that intense, several of the women came forward saying that they lied about it and they had actually cut their clothes and they just wanted the attention. And from there, the Halifax slasher kind of died out. But it's historically remembered as a bunch of people who all got really mad and started beating people up and hunting down a killer when the killer never even existed. Or even if he did exist, never even killed someone. He was just like really bad at being a serial killer. Spring Hill Jack happened in London in 1837. A lot of these are people in like the British London, Halifax area just pretending that something interesting is happening. Anyway, in 1837, a woman claimed that she was attacked by a tall man in an alley who was very handsome and had a devilish laugh. The most striking detail being that the man had claws over his fingers. The next day, a similar-looking man jumped in front of a carriage that was going down the street, causing the carriage to steer off the road and careen into a wall. According to onlookers, the man then laughed and leaped over a 9-foot wall to escape. This began the legend of Spring Hill Jack, and several people of London said that he was either a ghost or the devil causing mischief on Earth. The sightings became more and more elaborate, everyone maintaining the idea of him having claws on his hands, but others saying that he had the ability to breathe blue and white fire and had glowing red fire for eyes. The majority of stories were women following men into dark alleys who would then take off their coat and reveal themselves to be a tall, devil-looking figure who would breathe fire and in some cases cause women to die of fright. There were even stories of soldiers seeing a man bound through the woods and over walls some 20 feet tall. Despite all of this, no one in any of the sightings was ever identified, and sightings of Spring Hill Jack went from 1837 all the way to 1904, with spiritualists then and even now believing this to be a demon or the devil himself interacting with people on Earth. Or, as science says, a case of mass hysteria. The Belgium Coca-Cola crisis occurred in Belgium on June the 8th of 1999. That day, at an elementary school in Belgium, 26 children at the same school said that they got headaches and became nauseous after drinking a Coke bottle that they said smelled funny. This story went to the news, and in the following days, hundreds of children all over Belgium also said that they became sick after drinking Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola launched a thorough investigation and found that there was absolutely nothing wrong with any of the drinks that were shipped out. Even examining the specific bottles that the children supposedly got sick on, and the only explanation being, perhaps with the first kids, the bottles were being stored in somewhere that had like a moldy air because it may have smelled a little funny, but there was nothing in the drink or on the bottle itself. And for all the hundreds of kids in the days following, there was absolutely zero explanation. However, Coca-Cola, never having dealt with a crisis like this before, didn't know the golden rule of customer service, which is the customer is always right, and instead made a PR announcement that all of your kids are lying to you, and this is actually a case of mass hysteria, and they're making it up, and you should tell them to shut up. I'm summarizing a little bit, but that was the basic gist. This made parents furious, saying that Coca-Cola was willingly poisoning their children and were now trying to cover it up. Because of this bad PR, over 30 million bottles of Coca-Cola products had to be recalled from Europe, and eventually the president of Coca-Cola was fired. But as stated before, there were no actual diseases or recognizable symptoms, and most people do believe, even if a little harsh, that it was a case of children experiencing hysteria. The Monkey Man of Delhi happened in May of 2001, where several people in New Delhi, India said that they were attacked by a monkey man. More specifically, people said that at night they would be attacked by a 4-foot-tall creature covered in black hair with a metal helmet and metal claws with glowing red eyes and buttons on its chest. They said that it would run at them, begin screaming and hitting them before it would begin leaping over buildings to get away. People in the region lost their minds over this. There began to be riots and protests saying that the government is trying to hide the Monkey Man from them. Mobs began to form in the streets at night trying to find the Monkey Man. And in one case, a short, bald monk was walking along the street at night when a mob saw him and nearly beat him to death, thinking him to be the Monkey Man. Dozens of people said that they had been attacked, and 3 people fell to their deaths when they were standing on buildings and began screaming that the Monkey Man is chasing them before they jumped off and died. But as you can imagine, no Monkey Man was ever found, and it's believed that the entire thing was a case of people getting too worked up over nothing. Biting nuns is the slightly more intense version of the meowing nuns thing. So this happened in 15th century Germany at a convent of nuns, and similar to the meowing nuns thing, one nun decided to bite another nun as a joke, to which that nun bit someone else, and like a zombie plague, eventually the entire convent of nuns was just biting each other. This story picked up notoriety as being weird, and messengers delivered it to other convents, to which they began doing the same thing, and eventually convents beginning in Germany and eventually in Holland, Rome, Italy, and the Netherlands all had these castles full of women biting each other. It became such a problem that the Catholic Church began to send out bishops and priests to pray for the convents to get them to stop, and when that didn't work, they began holding exorcisms to get the women to stop fighting each other. When that didn't work, they did the thing that the village from the meowing nuns did, where they got a military to come and threaten to whip the nuns, only this time they didn't threaten. They straight up started flogging nuns, and that got everyone to stop. This one to me is more impressive than other cases similar to it, because this wasn't just people doing something as a troll or as a joke. They were performing exorcisms and physically being beat, and they would not quit fighting each other. And also, to the credit of the soldiers who beat them, as well as the priests and bishops and all that, I couldn't find any records if this was like a playful bite, like a non-painful thing, or if they were like beginning to rip skin out of random people, because if it was the latter, I also would have held an exorcism. We are now on to Tier 3. The Blackburn faintings occurred in the UK in 1965 when a group of school children were outside waiting for Princess Margaret to show up. Specifically, they were waiting by the Blackburn Cathedral in the middle of the hot sun. After a delayed arrival, which took several hours, several of the children, 140 in fact, passed out due to heat exhaustion. Now, that's all well and good and understandable. However, what's odd is the next day at school, when in perfectly normal conditions, 98 other children passed out as well. And then the next day more did. And the next day more, and eventually by the end of the week, over 300 children who attended the school near Blackburn Cathedral all fainted due to hearing stories of the children who originally fainted. There was no reason given to the faintings after that of the heat exhaustion, and it's believed another psychosomatic disease simply caused these kids to pass out after hearing that their classmates had also passed out. So Irish fright takes a little bit of history to explain. So James II was the King of England in the 1680s. He was generally despised by Protestant England, who felt that he was too violent and willing to kill the people at any time. However, James's daughter Mary was a Protestant herself and was in fact married to a man known as William of Orange. And it was believed that if the country could just wait on him to die, whenever Mary comes to power, everything will be okay. However, tensions were exacerbated whenever James had a son, meaning that there was another heir to the throne he could raise. People began to panic. In the midst of the panic, James, who was trying to maintain his empire, had several Irish soldiers come to the country to maintain order. Legends of these soldiers and their brutality in combat ran throughout Protestant England, and people became increasingly afraid of their presence. On December 9th of 1688, James lost a battle with the Irish army and decided to flee the country while at the same time releasing the army from their conscript. In other words, on December 9th, James and the Irish army left the country. However, while word got around that James had left, a lot of people in England at the time did not know that the Irish army left as well. And with all of the stories of the soldiers' brutality running rampant, many feared that the Irish would strike back and destroy the people as revenge for James leaving. And on December 13th, the true effects of what's known as the Irish Fright began. Reports began to run through the countryside that the Irish, who mind you were no longer in the country, had been burning villages, destroying churches, and slaughtering people en masse. The villages began to panic and erect fortifications as well as arm themselves and wait at the walls of their town for the Irish to come invade. No one really knows where the reports came after this. A lot of people think that maybe it was pro-Mary and William propagandists who started it, but stories started coming in saying that the Irish were burning down London and they were massacring children and that they were vampires and all other means of evil you could imagine. It got so convoluted at one point that Town A would get a message that Town B had been totally destroyed and the Irish are on their way, while at the same time, Town B would get a message that Town A had been destroyed and the Irish were on the way. This went on for several weeks, with patrols leaving the towns to be on the lookout for whenever the Irish invade, which led to several awkward interactions where two patrols from different towns would run into each other and be like, "Oh, I thought the Irish got you." And they'd say, "No, I thought they got you." And they'd go, "Man, these guys are so good, we got us and we didn't even know we've been got." Thankfully, there was no stories, at least to my knowledge, of this leading to any massacres or people freaking out and killing other people or whatever. And Mary and William took the throne, and this entire thing is known in history as the Glorious Revolution. So it went surprisingly well for a bunch of scared British people pointing guns at each other. The 2008 Congo football riots. And I emphasize again, like I said at the beginning, I'm not saying this to disrespect anyone's religion or belief. This is the funniest thing I've read in a long time. On September the 14th, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, there was a soccer game to us Americans, but a football game being played between two of the local teams. Near the end of the game, the goalkeeper on the losing team was accused of casting a spell in order to win the game, and they said that that was a penalty and should get him ejected. This quickly turned into a large riot, which whenever police showed up to try to contain the situation, the entire audience began pelting them with stones. The police did not like this, and fired tear gas into the crowd, which caused a mass stampede and then several riots within the city over the next several days. Now, I understand this is kind of breaking my rule that I set up at the beginning, that I didn't want to talk about the ones that were just people overreacting to like a single event or a single set of panic. But the reason I want to mention it is supposedly this was a recorded event, which means somewhere out there, there is a video of a goalkeeper casting a spell on the field and the audience losing their minds because that should be a penalty, followed by everyone pulling out stones that they brought to a soccer game and attacking the police. So I'm putting out a bounty of $500 for anyone who can find me a clip of the goalkeeper casting a spell. And I know I'm not saying this to be offensive at all. I understand I'm not disrespecting anyone's beliefs or anything like that. However, considering it was in the middle of a soccer game and this wasn't like in a church or with sacraments or whatever have you, it was a goalie standing on a soccer field. I just need to know what that looks like. The Mount Pleasant, Mississippi mass drug use, that's a sentence, happened in 1976 at Mount Pleasant, Mississippi, when 15 students passed out in the middle of the school day. The police who showed up assumed that it's because they had all been using drugs and trading them with each other. However, after investigation, all of the students passed clean on their checks and there were no drugs found in the school. The symptoms of this were rather severe, with several of the 15 students convulsing and throwing up violently over the next several days. These extreme symptoms and no evidence led several parents to think that perhaps whatever drugs were being used were in the air or untraceable, or even some saying that there was a hex going around at the school, which in the coming week made 300 of the 900 student population stay home for fear of whatever was going on. However, to this day, despite the extreme lengths of the symptoms, nothing was ever found, and it seems to be a case of mass delusion. 2007 Boston Moon Night Panic. Like the Congo one, this is technically cheating because it's panic over an event and not like shared delusion or whatever, but I don't care. It's too funny not to mention. On January the 31st of 2007, several LED placards were set up around Boston to promote the new Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie. However, when the Boston police saw these, they assumed that they were IEDs. They shut down roadways, called in bomb squads, had helicopters everywhere, EMT teams, the whole 9 yards. After retrieving one of the IEDs and trying to analyze what the weird symbol on it was, it took hours until a young staffer who was working at the mayor's office saw a picture and said, "Oh, that's the Aqua Teen Hunger Force guy." The sheer absurdity, and the reason I'm including it as mass hysteria, is because of the extreme lengths of stupidity the Boston Police Department went to maintain their dignity in this scenario. If a police department was like, "Oh, we were dumb, my bad guys," I wouldn't think anything of it. But listen to this. During this whole hoopla, they arrested 2 men who were installing one of the placards, and whenever the men told them, "I work for Cartoon Network, this is just an advertising campaign," the police said that they were looking into their alibi. In their official press report, after Cartoon Network had said this was just an advertisement, our bad to the police, in the press report, the police said that they were investigating this because it had circuits, lights, and wires, quote, like a bomb. You know what else has circuits, lights, and wires?
A sign.
A light. They then spent the entire press conference talking about how they'll get to the bottom of whatever intent was given to these devices placed around the city, and that they still believed it could be a IED because it was placed in, quote, high traffic areas. You know what else goes in high traffic areas? Advertisements. They concluded by saying, "We are looking into if this is either a hoax or something else entirely." To this day, they don't refer to it as a bomb scare. They refer to it as a bomb hoax, implying that Cartoon Network tried to threaten the city of Boston. The most frustrating part about it is the police and Homeland Security made Cartoon Network pay out $2 million for damages,
ridiculous.
or in other words, making them look like an idiot on television. So while not along my definition of mass hysteria as being an unexplainable circumstance in human history, this was too hilarious not to mention, so you're welcome. The face scratcher hysteria happened in northern India in 2002. Several people in villages within North India said that at night a small glowing unidentifiable creature would fly at them before scratching up their face and leaving. Specifically, they said that this creature emanated a red and blue glowing light and moved too fast to get a good view of. People in the village said that up to 7 deaths were investigated, said that they were investigating if it was a, quote, insect that was put together by the government in order to attack and terrorize small villagers. The only official death that occurred during any of this was when a mob of people began attacking a police station, saying that the government was building the face scratchers, to which whenever they broke in the front door of the police station, a police officer fired and killed one of the protesters. And there was reportedly 3 deaths caused by people falling from buildings in the middle of all this panic. I don't know what's happening, since this is the second time that 3 people have died in India from falling off of a building due to a hysteria caused by an impossibly small creature attacking humans that was also blamed on the government and police. There's probably something there, I'm just not getting it right now. And similar to the Monkey Man of Delhi that I mentioned earlier, vigilante groups got together and began patrolling the streets trying to kill the face scratcher. Although, as you can imagine, nothing was ever found, and it's chalked up to just be a huge misunderstanding. We are now on to Tier 4, and I promise you they just keep getting weirder. Puppy pregnancy syndrome, is a delusion that is most often seen in villages around northern India. However, other cases similar to it, if you could call it that, have been reported in some areas of the United States and Europe as well. Pretty much any region that has a lot of traditional folklore and not a lot of modern education or understanding of anatomy. It is the belief that after someone has been bit by a dog, that they are now pregnant with puppies. And while you may be thinking, is this just like a couple absolutely out of their mind people who say this every year? It has been known to affect tens of thousands of people across small villages in the world. These people report that they can see the puppies moving inside of them and can hear them barking. And if you're thinking, is this just women that feel that way? No, men too. And as a matter of fact, it's believed by several of these small villages that it is okay if a woman gets it, but if a man gets it, he will die because he cannot survive the birthing process. The reason I mention it in India specifically is because several of these villages have herbal healers who will give people concoctions of herbs and other things that they say will dissolve the puppies and not, kill them during the process. However, this has historically proven to be incredibly dangerous because the majority of people who are bit by dogs are bit by stray dogs that often have rabies. And many of these healers tell patients that if they accept modern medicine, it will counteract the herbal medicine that got rid of the puppies in them. So hundreds of people have died due to rabies because they will not take modern medicine because they are afraid it will counteract the puppies inside of them. And that's where the danger of puppy pregnancy syndrome comes from. And I want to emphasize again, this is an incredibly small decimal of a percentage of one of the largest countries in the world. However, it is enough of a problem that doctors within India are trying to get education centers and better information out to these groups of people, because every year hundreds of people die literally due to ignorance. Well, literally to the rabies, but it's the ignorance that makes it fatal. The Liverpool Leprechauns began on June the 30th of 1964 in Liverpool. It started when a young boy ran through the street saying that he had spotted a leprechaun. Over the next several days, other boys said that they had also spotted leprechaun, and this caused several adults to get in on the craze. On the 1st of July, there were such large crowds around the parks in Liverpool that the police had to show up and disperse them, as they were way over capacity and kids were destroying bushes and flowers trying to find the leprechauns. And throughout the streets of Liverpool, first aid stations had to be built due to all of the children who were tumbling down hills and hurting themselves trying to look for these leprechauns. It is believed that thousands of people, children and adults alike, were all on the leprechaun hunt for at least a week in Liverpool before the craze spread to other nearby cities, and there were stories of children running amok in churches trying to find leprechauns hidden in the garden outside, or refusing to come to school because they were out on a leprechaun hunt. One man by the name of Brian Jones claimed forward, saying that one day he was out gardening in a green outfit and he was pretty short, and a kid said, "Hey, look, a leprechaun." So he yelled some gibberish at him and started dancing and ran away, and he thinks that's what caused everything. But it's nice to think that all of Liverpool was on a leprechaun hunt for a week, and to my knowledge no one died, which for my videos is a pretty good start. The Tanganyika laughter epidemic started on January the 30th of 1962. In an all-girls school in the country that is now Tanzania, 3 girls began laughing uncontrollably for seemingly no reason. Within minutes, this laughter spread to 95 girls in the school. All of the girls were 12 to 18 years old, with some of these laughing fits only lasting a few hours, and some lasting up to 16 days. The school was shut down because it wasn't known if some disease or mania was going throughout the students, and then when it was reopened on March the 18th, the laughter started over again. This time it seems to have jumped to another school where 217 girls there also reported laughing fits. I should also mention these laughing fits that went on for days were not a laughing matter, haha, to any of the girls experiencing them. As a matter of fact, several of the girls were crying and screaming and seemed to be in a lot of pain as they could not stop. The hysteria continued to jump from school to school until by the end, 14 schools were affected, with over 1,000 girls experiencing uncontrollable and painful fits of laughter. To this day, no explanation is given, and it's just known as one of the most famous cases of mass hysteria. The Mad Gasser of Mattoon happened in Mattoon, Illinois during World War II in 1944. It started when a few people within the town said that they would wake up to a foul odor and being unable to move their legs. This coincided with sightings people had of a tall man suspiciously standing outside of their home, with some saying that he held a flit gun, which is that thing from Looney Tunes cartoons that they would use to pump smoke or whatever. The symptoms upgraded from just paralysis of the legs to nausea, vomiting, and coughing fits. Over 24 people reported seeing a man outside of their house immediately before experiencing these weird symptoms, with a couple cases even saying that they saw a blue vapor, and one person saying that they got a good look at the man and it was actually a woman dressed as a man. As I mentioned earlier, this took place during World War II, and the historical belief is that everyone was just so paranoid from whatever was going to happen in the war that they just imagined a man coming to their house and trying to poison them, and a lot of people imagined it over the course of several weeks, and they just collectively made it up. The daycare child abuse hysteria was pretty widespread. However, I'm going to focus on what's most likely the most popular case of it. This case began in 1983 at the McMartin Preschool at Manhattan Beach, California. It began when a mother of one of the students at the preschool accused one of the workers of touching her child. Now, what you need to know about this mother is she had had a very long history of falsely accusing other people of doing impossible tasks. And in the same breath that she said this man touched her child, she also said that he would abuse animals, and could fly. The police, considering her history of false accusations, were skeptical of her. However, not understanding how this could go wrong, asked the parents to simply ask their children if they thought anything was weird or anything weird had happened. To which all of the preschoolers began to give exceedingly absurd accounts of what happened. It is thought that the stories that I'm about to say were mostly done at the hand of bad social workers who would lead the children into more and more extravagant stories because I guess that's a win in their book. Again, at the suggestion of social workers, the children said that they participated in satanic rituals, the murdering and drinking of babies' blood, that they witnessed witches fly around on broomsticks and cast spells, that they were led into tunnels underneath the school that were non-existent, where mole people lived, and they were also taken up into hot air balloons above LA, and through the course of all of this, they were repeatedly abused. Now, while that may sound like weird for a kid to say, the way that information was actually obtained was a guy sat there and was like, were you abused by the workers at the preschool? And the kid would go, yeah. And he'd go, okay, where? And the kid would go, a hot air balloon? Hot air balloon. With one kid even saying that he was abused by none other than Chuck Norris. This was during the real height of the whole satanic panic thing, and kids were hearing all these stories from parents about how awful witchcraft was and child murder and horror movies and stuff like that. So whenever they were asked by their parents if they even held a story that at the end of every school day they were all, quote, flushed down the toilets before they would be cleaned up and then presented to their parents. So logically, we can all chalk this up as one woman told a dumb lie, and now everyone at this school is suffering the consequences because people don't understand how childs work. Well, that would be the case if it wasn't for LA District Attorney Ira Reiner, who was up for re-election, and again, this was at the height of the satanic panic, and at this time throughout the country there were other cases of child abuse coming out. So in order to try to get re-elected, she charged the workers of the preschool with 208 counts of child molestation, to which in court the majority of the reasons of the cases were absurd things like this child said that he drank baby blood in a hot air balloon, and a jury for some reason had to debate that. The trial lasted 3 years, which again due to the absurdity and length of the accusations, and is still in American history as the most expensive and long-running trial throughout the entire nation's run, and it ended, thankfully, with 0 convictions and all workers being acquitted. While this is the most popular story, there were several other cases throughout the country where a similar thing, ridiculous things ensued. So I'm going to pin the mass hysteria of this one on the parents and not the children, because the children are children and the parents should know better. Dot syndrome is something known as a culture-bound syndrome. In other words, there are some illnesses or psychosomatic illnesses where a person thinks they're sick but they're actually not, that are only observed in certain cultures around the world. Dot syndrome specifically only being found in South Asia. See, it's a belief within some religious practices in South Asia that you have a series of vital fluids throughout your body, and if you lose any of them, you'll become weaker and could possibly die. One of those vital fluids in men is the fluid that is exclusive to men, if you catch my drift. And to quit cutting corners, Dot syndrome is the belief that semen is escaping within one's urine. Now, this is completely untrue in every case it's reported. There is no disease that causes you to do that, at least not all the time. However, because in South Asia it is viewed as being important, again in some beliefs, to maintain that fluid in your body, that is the only place in the world where people develop the idea that they are losing it for some reason. It's an interesting phenomenon because it gives us such a clear line to trace back to where it comes from, because in that we can see, okay, they care about this thing, which is why it's the only region in the world where this psychosomatic illness pops up at. But if it's so easy to trace the line on that, it implies that other cases of hysteria could have an equally reasonable option for what led them there. And Dog syndrome is seen by many researchers as the framework to truly understanding hysteria and shared delusion. We are now down to the fifth tier, or second to last, on this iceberg. The Hollandwell incident occurred in England's East Midlands in July of 1986. During this time, about 500 children from local schools were there for a band competition. It wasn't particularly hot or anything else that may obviously lead to exhaustion, but for whatever reason, 300 people spontaneously fainted. Upon waking up, which for some of them took several hours, several reported having a sore throat and burning eyes. This also wasn't exclusive to the children, as several of the adults nearby also passed out and experienced these symptoms. It was such a head-scratcher at the time that two of the lead theories were perhaps a new radio tower nearby caused radio waves to do this to all of these people, or that it was a government silent weapons testing to see if they could spontaneously knock out an entire crowd of people. Either way, the Hollandwell incident is a weird moment in recent history because a bunch of people just passed out and then felt bad, and that was it, and no explanation was ever given. Coro is a culture-bound syndrome, like I mentioned earlier with Dot syndrome. However, this one is a bit more hilarious. So Coro is the name given to vanishing genitalia syndrome and is exclusively seen in males. It is the belief that one's is continuously shrinking and they are powerless to stop it. And this isn't just like a guy thinking that it happened a little bit. This is people who continuously experience this, suffer panic attacks, and regularly make trips to the doctor because they feel like they can't stop whatever's happening. Also, while reading about treatment for it, the primary treatment is a discussion on anatomy with the patient. And the reason this is so funny to me isn't just, haha, man, dumb, think, stupid, whatever. It's because, remember how I said culture-bound syndrome is specifically when one's belief inflicts a paranoid delusion in what they think is happening to their body? Well, this is believed to be the same thing, but it's seen everywhere around the world because in some way, every single culture holds that aspect of the body in high regard. So because of it, everyone experiences the same symptom of thinking that's happening to them, even though it's for completely different reasons, with men in the United States thinking it has something to do with masculinity, people in East Asia thinking it has something to do with religion or stature within one's family, etc. In other words, no matter where you are in the world, it is ingrained in the human psyche enough that everyone thinks it's important, and therefore Coro is seen across the entire Earth's population. I should also mention that Coro means tortoise head, which, yeah. Kateri Malaysia 2019 Screaming Schoolgirls pretty much sums it up. But in 2019 in Malaysia at an all-girls school, one girl said that she felt a sharp pain on her shoulder before she spun around and passed out. While passed out, she said she saw several visions around her of these horrifying locations and, quote, the most terrifying face I've ever seen. She came out of this delirium screaming, to which several other girls in the school also started screaming, although none of them later reported seeing the same vision. This carried throughout the entire school until nearly the entire school's population could not quit screaming, and even after all threat was subsided, they were talking, could not physically quit the convulsions they were having. And while not all of them saw that exact vision, 39 other girls reported seeing other visions of creepy things happening around them. Several religious experts were called in to pray over the girls, and bystanders said that they saw girls kicking and screaming who had to be dragged out of classrooms to keep them from hurting themselves and others. This continued for several hours until exorcists were brought in, who said that the old trees around the school housed evil spirits, and so the trees were cut down. And after several days of prayers and exorcism, all the girls seemingly returned to normal. I mean, you know, most of them were still horribly traumatized with everything that happened, but they quit screaming. The Louisiana twitching epidemic happened at Bellevue, Louisiana in 1939. It began when, during a homecoming dance, one girl who was not dancing began experiencing a twitching sensation in her right leg. It was very painful and constant, to which she eventually went to the hospital. The next day, 6 other girls experienced the same twitching sensation in their right leg, to which they also went to the hospital. After thorough examinations and reviews, it was determined that none of the girls were lying, and all of them in fact did have some weird spasm happening in their body. So get how weird this is. After several questions from the doctors, the girl eventually said that her boyfriend was there dancing that night, but she didn't want to dance. While she was watching him dance, another girl began dancing with him, and she got jealous and wanted to, but felt super nervous and sick because she was too nervous and she wanted to go up there and yada yada. That's when the twitching started. It's believed by the doctors that her brain was trying so hard to either make her move or give her a reason to not dance or something, that it just inflicted that pain and sensation in her legs in order to make that happen. Meaning she subconsciously wanted something so bad that her body did the work for her. And that the other cases afterwards were girls either so scared, worried, invested, or whatever, that their body did the exact same thing to them. This case of hysteria is unique in that it was observed by doctors for days on end and given several speculations and ideas around. With a lot of cases of hysteria, we can say, oh, that group of people didn't know what they're talking about, or they're just dumb, but this had enough eyes on it to be viewed as something legitimately weird. The other parents thought it was weird too, as for the next several days at the school, children were pulled, thinking that there was some disease happening that made kids twitch their right leg for some reason. And being a textbook case of a psychosomatic illness, the twitching leg incident of Louisiana is still remembered as one of the most definitive cases of mass hysteria. We are now on to the final tier with Tier 6. The Seattle windshield pitting epidemic occurred in Bellingham, Seattle in 1954. In one of the weirdest cases of mass hysteria, a few people in the Bellingham region of Seattle said that they noticed a few holes in the front windshield of their car. The primary idea at the time being that some kid with a BB gun had shot a few of the windshields as a mean joke, and it made enough rounds that it went to the local newspaper. As soon as it was in the newspaper, other people reported that they also had holes in their windshield. From there, everyone began freaking out over holes that they said suddenly appeared in their windshield. People thought it was everything from nuclear testing to sand flea eggs that somehow got implanted inside of glass. And by April the 15th of 1954, 3,000 people had contacted the police saying that they also had a hole in their windshield. This was such a problem, and the mayor was freaking out so much that he called President Eisenhower and asked him to send out the military or investigators to help with whatever's going on. See, what you got to realize about glass at the time is it wasn't as refined as it is now, and there was a much more common problem with pitting in windshields or small cracks or bumps in the glass. By general estimates, about 95% of the cases were people who had never noticed a hole or chip in their windshield until someone told them that they should probably look for it, and that people began freaking out over something that was always there. Or, in other words, people who had been driving a car, and maybe when they first got it, they noticed a crack in the bottom right corner of the windshield, and they didn't think about it for a couple years, and then the news goes, do you also have a hole in your windshield? And then they go outside and see it and have a panic attack. I do love the idea that it was so hyped up that the mayor called the president over it to get the military to, I don't know, shoot the kids who were shooting cars with BB guns or whatever. But nothing really quite fits the bill of mass hysteria as much as a bunch of people in Seattle thinking sand fleas were laying eggs in their cars. The Ganesha drinking milk miracle occurred on September the 21st of 1995. At a temple of Ganesha, one of the worshippers had a spoonful of milk it was offering to the statue, which whenever he held the spoon up to the trunk of it, it seemed that the milk was sucked up into the trunk of the statue. Immediately, the worshipper began calling people who tried it out on their statues of Ganesha, and sure enough, the same thing happened. By the end of the day, on September 21st, temples all over the world were lined up with people trying to see if the statue would drink milk for them, with several temples in India boasting lines that took up miles. As a matter of fact, on that day, milk sales in India jumped up 30%. I should also mention that several of the temples kicked people out because they were trying to do stuff like get the statues to drink beer. And while Ganesha wasn't the only one that was reported that day to drink milk, it was the most popular. Now again, if you believe that, more power to you, not trying to discredit you, but the scientific explanation for what was happening then is something known as capillary action. In other words, if you have a sort of vacuum made out of a funnel and you hold something up like a liquid that is malleable, it will travel up that because it's the path of least resistance. It's the same concept of doing something like siphoning gas up a tube, or while not the exact same, whenever you like hold your finger on a straw and it goes like up the straw, that whole thing. And the idea behind it is that a lot of people just never tried holding liquid up to the statue, which has a hollowed out trunk in the middle, and whenever they held a liquid up to it, the same thing happened and the liquid traveled up the trunk. But similar to the windshield pitting epidemic, even though it was always there, once people were told to look for it, it became a huge hysteric outcry. Those are always my favorite cases with this kind of thing, when it's something that we can look at and simply scoff at, but at the time it was a pretty big deal. And I mean, yeah, if I held up a liquid in front of a statue and it drank it out of my hand, I'd be pretty freaked out too. The Milan poison scare happened in Milan, Italy in the 17th century. During this time, the governor of Milan got a letter from King Philip IV of Spain. In the letter, the king told the governor that there were 4 escaped Frenchmen who were trying to spread the plague through Europe. The governor then told his people, which was a fantastic idea, because everyone immediately began to panic. This wasn't helped when on May the 17th of 1629, it seems that someone was playing a prank and put a bunch of like water on people's doors so they would think it was like infection or whatever. But people were so on edge when that prank happened, they began accusing army generals and even cardinals of the Vatican of doing it to try to spread the illness. And similar to every other case I've talked about, people started to form mobs in the street. They tried to hunt down whoever these 4 Frenchmen could be. There was an old man in a local church who wiped off a bench before he sat down on it, to which a group of women in the church surrounded him and said that he was trying to poison the bench. So they tried to drag him down the street to the essentially sheriff's office, and as they were doing it, they were kicking and punching him. By the time they got to the office, they had beat him to death, and they were like, that'll show him. There was one pharmacist in the town who had several chemicals that the people of the town could not immediately identify. I'm sure that means it like wasn't a plant in a jar or something. To which the pharmacist was tortured and stabbed on the rack until he confessed to being in league with the devil and several other co-conspirators. So the torturers then rounded up the co-conspirators and tortured them until they admitted that they also worked for the devil and have more co-conspirators, and this kept spiraling until dozens of people were tortured to death for being a part of the devil's plague. I wonder if, like, during this time, that governor who got the letter from the king about the 4 Frenchmen wrote back to the king and was like, hey, remember those 4 Frenchmen you warned me about? Don't worry, we found all 67 of them. This hysteria lasted for several months and got to such a point that several people came forward and confessed to being part of the conspiracy to spread the plague, to which they were promptly executed. And then after that, more people, knowing exactly what would happen to them, did the exact same thing, because the, confusion was so massive, people legitimately convinced themselves that they were a part of it. I'm sure there's something to be said here about fear turning you into the thing you were afraid of, and self-fulfilling prophecy, but the video's almost over, so I'm just moving on. And then in one of the wildest cases, at least in my opinion, of mass hysteria is the Lille boarding school. In Lille, France in 1639, there was an all-women Catholic boarding school made to essentially train nuns. The headmaster of the boarding school was not in the best of mind, and one day after walking into a classroom of girls, said that she could see little black devils spinning around all their heads and warned them that the devils are trying to get a hold of them. This continued over the course of several months until eventually every single girl in the school thought about demons and devils, and every class conversation exclusively had to do with concepts like witchcraft, possession, and the like. This began to turn students against each other until everyone was paranoid and convinced that the student next to them was participating in witchcraft. This culminated when one girl tried to run away from the school before she was caught and brought back. Whenever she was brought back and questioned, she said that she had not run away. Instead, the devil had flown in through the window, given her a broomstick for which to fly away with, because she had actually been the witch this entire time, and everything that was happening at the school was her doing. As soon as she said this, another girl came forward and said, no, I'm the witch and I'm the one who the devil actually wants, before another student did the same, and this continued to snowball until 50 different girls all claimed to be witches in league with the devil himself. They continuously tried to one-up each other in feats of will. While the first girl said that she flew on a broomstick with the devil, another girl said that she had been casting spells and leaving hexes on all the girls in the school, and another girl said that she had a hand in the plague itself. The headmaster, who remember started this whole shebang and was absolutely terrified of witchcrafts and devil, called the Vatican itself, who sent people in to investigate. The members of the church who walk into a boarding house full of women all talking about how they're trying to kill God and cast spells on each other were mortified. To which they came to the conclusion that the best thing to do was to burn all 50 of the girls in order to make an example out of them. Whenever they asked for approval on this from other members of the church, the other priests were like, maybe don't do that just yet. The specific wording is that they urge the men to further investigate and reconsider before, you burn 50 girls at a stake. And then after not being afraid and actually asking questions, they figured out that all of the girls were very misinformed when it came to the supernatural and didn't really understand proper concepts of exorcism or possession or what have you, and they eventually traced all the lines back to the headmaster of the school. So whenever they figure out that she's actually responsible for everything that's going on, they said, whatever. Legit, they just left. After figuring out that all this had been caused by the headmaster essentially indoctrinating these girls, they just left. I don't even think they took away her position as headmaster. They were just like, oh, you. But the reason this has always been my favorite case of mass hysteria is because you have this group of girls who originally started because they wanted to find God in their life or some higher purpose or what have you, but at the advice of one person who continuously berated them, saying that the devil's going to get them and the devil's out there, it caused them to develop such a sense of paranoia that they didn't know how to exist outside of that paranoia. And then they switched from virtues and morals into evil and being dastardly and the worst they could imagine. It's an entire flip of the human psyche at the suggestion of one person. In actuality, now that I think about it, this is one of the original cults as we think of them today. And it's also hilarious that the guys who show up's like, we have to burn all of the women here. And then someone else said, maybe don't do that. And they're like, oh, all right, I guess we'll just leave. And it's so interesting to me because it's one kind of mass hysteria with group thought under one guide alongside another mass hysteria of community thought and fear in the face of the unknown. And they seem to be two sides of the same coin, with that coin kind of being representative of how spiritualism was viewed at the time. And stories like that are always so interesting to me, not only because of how they apply to history as a whole, but just as these little pockets of information for how people can work whenever in this certain scenario. And I don't know, I've just always thought it's kind of neat. And hopefully you thought it's kind of neat, and hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I just want to say, thank you for watching. This is the first video that I've started full production of, over 1 million subscribers, and that is so weird to think about. I think I'm at like 1.03 now, like since the MLK video came out.
This meeting has been a long time coming, hasn't it? You've come a long ways, literally, and I suspect figuratively as well.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the 174th episode of Analyzing Evil, featuring Mr. House from the Fallout franchise. In the Fallout universe, there's no shortage of morally questionable characters, and for a world ravaged by nuclear war that hides mutated beasts and bandits behind every corner, things can get a bit complicated as far as morality is concerned. One such complex individual is our subject for this video, Mr. Robert House, the enigmatic leader of New Vegas pulling the strings of all around him from the shadows of his would-be technological utopia, a man dreaming of a better tomorrow while trying to preserve his golden past. Much like Andrew Ryan of BioShock fame, Mr. House was inspired by some of the great business magnates of the past, namely Howard Hughes. And speaking of Andrew Ryan, there's even an homage to Andrew Ryan in the form of, and spoiler alert here, an achievement you can get if you kill him in the same way you kill Andrew Ryan in the first BioShock game. Armin Shimmerman and Rene Auberjonois acted alongside each other in several different projects, like Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Boston Legal, and they were also good friends as well. So the similarities between Ryan and House are present even outside their respective universes, which is pretty interesting. Anyway, in this video, we're going to explore whether or not this man of dubious intentions can truly be called evil, or whether he might lie somewhere in between on the spectrum of morality. But before we do that, I have a pretty interesting new sponsor to tell you all about. And if you couldn't tell by my little change of appearance here, they're a clothing brand, specifically one that caters to for sponsoring this video, own a company known as H&H. Thank you to Origami for sponsoring this video. Now without further ado, let's begin. Robert Edwin House was born on June 25, 2020 in or around the Las Vegas area to unnamed wealthy parents who owned a company known as H&H Tools. At the age of 2, Robert's parents died in an autogyro accident after their autogyro was struck by lightning, leaving Robert and his elder half-brother Anthony orphaned. Anthony would later conspire to cheat Robert out of any inheritance he might have received from his father's estate by claiming that Robert, who might have been a bastard, was not really family. Orphaned and deprived of the life of luxury he might have had his parents not passed, things were likely quite rough for Robert growing up. However, Robert had a distinct advantage that ensured his life would turn out just fine regardless of his brother's machinations, that being the fact that Robert House was a genius. At some point in his teens, whether that be before one regularly graduates high school due to his advanced intelligence, or at the age of 18, Robert was accepted into the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, or CIT, in Massachusetts, which is the Fallout equivalent of the prestigious MIT in our universe. Now, it's reasonable to assume that Robert graduated high school early, as after he completed his schooling at CIT, he went on to found Robco Industries when he was only 22 in 2042. And in just 5 years, Robert would elevate his fledgling company to the most dominant robotics corporation in the world, and one of the most profitable at that. For the next 30 years, Robert House would oversee the expansion of a technological empire that would dip its hand into everything from household robotics and personal computer operating systems to military-grade robotics, weaponry, and operating systems. And by the time the Great War began in 2077, most computers and robotics in the United States and other friendly nations were operating with Robco software or machinery. Much of this success can be attributed to Robco's products, which revolutionized the robotics and software industries on all fronts. But there are a few other factors that helped Robco become as successful as it did, like Mr. House's shrewd business acumen and his aggressive business tactics. Robert organized his company into what one Jenny DeSoto described in an email you can find on a terminal in the H&H Tools factory as a maze. And much like the enigma that House was when he ruled over New Vegas, he maintained much the same persona prior to the Great War, enabling the proprietary secrets of Robco to stay secure and all business endeavors bereft of corruption and outside manipulation. As far as aggressive business tactics are concerned, Robco was known for eventually gaining a sizable monopoly in several industries, as it would seem that as soon as he was able, Mr. House began taking over other corporations. And if those takeovers had to be hostile, well, so be it. Robert House would do whatever necessary to acquire his competition, if it suited his aims. And several corporations were absorbed by Robco due to his machinations, like his family's company H&H, which Robco was in the process of acquiring via stock manipulation a few years prior to the Great War. But Mr. House wasn't against making partnerships when they were more accommodating to his ambitions, and Robco partnered with companies like Vault-Tec to service their needs with their Pip-Boy line of products, and they were also a sponsor of Nuka-Cola's amusement park Nuka World with the Robco Battle Zone. In fact, the latter example was part of another component of Robco's success, the importance Robert placed on maintaining a pristine public image for his not-so-pristine corporation, as not only was Robco everywhere, but they were seemingly well respected as well due to their various PR campaigns. In essence, what Mr. House's history tells us is that he was an exceptional businessman who was majorly responsible for taking his company from nothing to the heights of wealth and power, and he did so by utilizing every scrupulous and unscrupulous tactic in business to do so, and he did so perhaps better than anyone else in history ever had. So is there anything evil about who Mr. House was and his actions in the pre-war Fallout universe? Sort of. Hostile takeovers and establishing monopolies aren't the greatest business practices, and one could argue that they're evil things to engage in, and I'm sure in the various scenarios in which Robert House attempted to further his business using these tactics, many people's livelihoods, or even their lives in general, may have been impacted. But unfortunately, these things are more so byproducts of a capitalist system that pretty much come with the territory, no matter which successful corporation you're looking into. Pre-war Robert House and his company essentially operated how you'd expect a CEO in a corporation of that size to, and while there's definitely quite a lot of moral ambiguity to the actions of mega corporations and their leaders, and I mean quite a lot, as far as Mr. House is concerned during this time period, I'd more so call him ruthlessly ambitious than I would evil. No, the point of bringing up who he was prior to the war is to highlight something interesting that you can't really find in most stories, and that's how any skills a person might have prior to a near world-ending apocalypse can potentially translate into actions and behaviors that one might not have expected to occur had the world remained intact. And such is the case with Mr. House, as all of these aspects of pre-war Robert House are very much present in the way he operates New Vegas and in his ambitions. Mr. House was ever mindful of current events and how they'd impact the future of not just his business endeavors, but the world at large. And in 2065, he had calculated that the world would be engulfed in a nuclear war within the next 15 years, and so he began making preparations for the inevitable. After expanding his lifespan by wiring himself into a contraption hooked into his supercomputer and shoring up the defenses of the Lucky 38 in Las Vegas, Mr. House was nearly poised to fend off any looming threat that the oncoming nuclear war could throw at him. But a mere 20 hours before his plans were to be completed, the world was engulfed in nuclear war, and due to this miscalculation, Mr. House was unable to retrieve one of the most crucial components of his defense systems, the Platinum Chip, which held the data necessary to upgrade the Lucky 38's missile defense systems and other aspects of its defenses, like his Securitron police force, which would have turned them into deadly self-repairing weapons of war that could deter any potential threat to Las Vegas following the conclusion of the nuclear attacks. Because the chip didn't arrive in time, the missile defense system he had in place was only able to deter some of the nuclear warheads, and though none hit the city itself, some did hit the surrounding areas, and because he was forced to work with an inferior version of his operating system, he had to contend with numerous malfunctions and system crashes that led to him being placed into a coma for 51 years. Functions and system crashes that led to him being placed into a coma for 51 years. Scavengers from the wastelands picked apart the remnants of Las Vegas and rendered most of it a hulking ruin, much like the other cities across the world. Despite the inadequate facilities, though, Mr. House ensured that the Lucky 38 would remain impenetrable. And though his precious Vegas was now the ruinous haunt of bandits and raiders, the Lucky 38 remained a stalwart bastion that housed the sleeping Robert House and his army of Securitrons, still running well and waiting for the day when all would be made right again by the guiding hand of their chairman. And indeed, when Robert woke up in 2138, he saw the conditions of his city and calculated that with his inferior force of Securitrons, he wouldn't be able to reassert his control or further his ambitions. Not yet, at least. And so Mr. House waited, biding his time until the conditions were right for him to re-emerge and once again ignite his plan for the preservation of Las Vegas and the human race. Those conditions finally presented themselves a staggering 136 years later, when the new California Republic began sending scouts to the Hoover Dam in preparation to retake it in a conflict with Caesar's Legion. Sending his Securitrons forth from the Lucky 38, House issued an ultimatum to the warring bands and tribes of bandits and raiders who made Las Vegas their home, letting them know via his Securitrons that they had only 3 options: join him, leave Las Vegas, or die. Only the Great Khans and the Kings refused to join with Mr. House, with the Great Khans leaving Vegas and the Kings occupying the Freeside district. The rest of them were recruited and reorganized into the 3 families of Las Vegas: the White Glove Society, the Omertas, and the Chairman, thereafter christening Las Vegas as the Free Economic Zone of New Vegas, with himself as CEO of the entire operation. With a Securitron police force in place, and the 3 families acting as the human overseers of this fledgling city-state, Mr. House now had a seat at the table with the other power brokers of the wasteland, and seeing that fighting a war against House would cost them a significant amount of lives, and give Caesar's Legion a massive lead in their war, after their advanced forces had arrived at the dam, Mr. House sent a Securitron to negotiate with them to establish a treaty, which they did, agreeing that 95% of the Hoover Dam's power and water would be sent to the NCR, McCarran International Airport was to be used as a base for the NCR, and that an NCR embassy should be established on the Strip. In return, the NCR recognized House's sovereignty over the Strip, and they agreed to send the remaining 5% of power and water to the New Vegas Strip, and they also agreed that NCR citizens and military personnel were free to come and go from New Vegas to bolster its economy, all of which allowed House to secure his foothold in the Mojave, while simultaneously expanding his coffers significantly. So in a calculated show of patience and foresight, Mr. House asserted his control over New Vegas, and established a thriving business on the New Vegas Strip, ruling from his Lucky 38 headquarters via his Securitrons. And as far as ruling Vegas goes, there's a few things to note about how he handles all of its affairs. For one, everything outside the Strip is essentially of no concern to Mr. House. The Securitrons patrol the Strip, and the 3 families toil to keep the casinos running and repaired. But in places like Freeside, the district where the Kings live and operate, things are much different. In Freeside, there are no laws, and there is no order. And that's because Mr. House effectively abandoned Freeside and the people who live there, building a wall around it to keep the seedy elements that had developed there from sullying his precious Strip. And Freeside is little more than a ghetto, where strife and misery are daily facets of life for its people. As far as business is concerned, the 3 families that operate the Strip and House's name take much of their inspiration from the 5 families of New York. And while they are considered employees of Mr. House's, there are also various tribes of raiders who have been promoted from raider to gangster. And much like the people of Freeside, the 3 families are largely left to their own devices, so long as they abide by the rules laid out by Mr. House, which translates to all sorts of nefarious behavior unofficially being sanctioned by House. As far as legitimate business is concerned, all the vendors who operate on the Strip are subject to a hefty 50% tax on their profits, which is sent directly to Mr. House's coffers. And this is quite the large tax to place on business owners, in addition to whatever other fees Mr. House exacts from them. So in essence, life in New Vegas is good for some, but only the some that align themselves with Mr. House's goals. And the rest, well, they're non-factors in the endless equation that's running through House's mind. Speaking of goals though, aside from survival and the preservation of the Las Vegas of old, what are Mr. House's goals? As you progress through the story, we learn that once he acquires the Platinum Chip, Mr. House planned to either destroy, assimilate, or pacify all the surrounding factions in the Mojave in order to make New Vegas secure and ensure that his true goal would be allowed to flourish unhindered. The establishment of New Vegas as the new center of human civilization, and the fulfillment of a plan to send colonizing spaceships across the stars to find new planets for humans to colonize, so man might start anew and escape from the follies of his past. And all of this would be accomplished by Mr. House ruling as an autocrat, a dictator who wouldn't necessarily pry into the private lives of people and dictate their day-to-day lives, but one that would force those that he ruled over to abide by his terms, so he might see his goals through to the end, or else. Now when we compare Mr. House's plan to that of the other factions fighting for control in this world, we find that what he has in store for the human race is probably the best option we have in this scenario, as Mr. House is the only one who has an eye on the future. The NCR is essentially a successor to the United States, and it operates in much the same way with all of its flaws and its virtues. While this is all well and good, what the United States was, and is, leaves much to be desired in many respects. And though there are many things within our past that we can look to in order to help us move forward, relying on old world ideals, in a world that was destroyed by those ideals, is short-sighted to say the least. And the NCR suffers heavily from corruption, moral and social backsliding, and imperialist attitudes that aim to reclaim the entirety of the U.S. due to the NCR's claim of being the legal successor of that nation. And with the NCR, it seems that their ultimate goal boils down to more of the same. Caesar's Legion is far worse because it takes its inspiration from a time in the past when horrific traditions and practices were still in place, namely the presence of totalitarian dictatorial empires and slavery. Even in our still intact society, we can look to the past for inspiration on how to solve some of the problems we face today, and there's a lot to admire about the old Roman Empire. By gazing back into history and taking from the Roman Empire its use of slaves, authoritarian governmental system, and its highly imperialistic military structure that sought to subjugate all around them for the benefit of the empire and its elites, is a regression that's far more harmful to humanity than anything the NCR could ever hope to achieve. So between these two, Mr. House's solution to humanity's woes seems like the best option here. However, just because it's the best option doesn't mean it's a good option. As you progress through the story according to Mr. House's wishes, it becomes very apparent that his ruthless business tactics have translated into ruthless governmental action. As you fulfill the tasks he set out for you, you'll find yourself presented with options to pacify certain organizations like the Boomers or the Omertas, as well as individuals like Benny. But Mr. House doesn't really care whether or not you convince them to join him, or if you kill them all to stop them from going against him. Likewise, at one point he tasked you with eliminating the Brotherhood of Steel, never even giving you the option to reason with them. Of course, by the time you've accomplished all these tasks, he orchestrates the downfall of the Legion during the Second Battle of the Hoover Dam, which was probably for the best, and then he leaves it up to your discretion as to whether or not the general in charge of the NCR's forces, General Oliver, is to be exterminated or set free alongside his many soldiers. After he's won this victory, and order and security has been renewed in New Vegas, he also sends his Securitron army into Freeside to pacify them, and depending on whether or not the Kings chose to enter into a truce with the NCR, ease tensions with them, or fight a war with them, Mr. House will either tell the Kings to leave New Vegas, and slaughters them when they refuse, enforce an uneasy order within Freeside, and slaughter them all once they decide to rebel sometime later, or coexist with them due to their willingness to fight against the NCR on the side of New Vegas. Even if the latter occurs, it shows how far Mr. House is willing to go in order to maintain his position in New Vegas, and the optimal conditions for the plans he seeks to further. Now, all of these things are less than admirable, but there's something to consider when examining the brutal actions Mr. House takes against his enemies. The fact that the world after the Great War is a treacherous place that often requires a firm hand guiding any given society in order for it to come out the other side peaceful and prosperous. All around anyone trying to make it in this new world are mutants.
Every 5
Anyone trying to make it in this new world are mutants, raiders, ghouls, violent legions, imperialists, and more. And when all around you are taking drastic action in order to further their own goals, drastic action sometimes needs to be taken in response. I've mentioned this a few times in previous videos on similar topics, but in a world where the fabric of society has crumbled, the most efficient and effective way to save and preserve human life is to impose order upon any given populace that you might be able to control by whatever means necessary, so you can stop the carnage that results from such a world-ending scenario from ravishing people's lives. This is especially important in the aftermath of an apocalypse, but it's equally as important later on when things have calmed down a bit and you're trying to rebuild the world. In the Fallout universe, even after over 200 years, things haven't really calmed down all too much, and Mr. House's willingness to take such drastic measures to ensure his vision for the restoration of the human species succeeds could be considered morally justifiable. However, one thing to note is that when Mr. House is explaining to us that he saved Vegas, he says that when he was running his calculations prior to shoring up its defenses, he realized that he could save Vegas, but not the entire world. That's all well and good, but he also adds that he didn't care to save the entire world either. Now obviously if he was incapable of doing so, there's no reason to fault him for not saving more than just Vegas. But his apathetic attitude towards the world at large is something that's key to who Mr. House is. As though he's concerned with the overall well-being of humanity and the future of the human species, he's also more than willing to crack a few eggs if he needs to, in order to ensure that happens. And while this is translated to him targeting organizations and people who might deserve to be dealt with, like the Legion, it could also easily devolve into the murder of innocent people who attempt to defy his totalitarian rule. And as I mentioned earlier, just because Mr. House has established a successful society in the Wastelands doesn't mean everyone is going to benefit from it, as I imagine there'd be plenty more Freeside-style ghettos popping up as the years pass by. Another problem with Mr. House's leadership style is that he inspires little love in the people that he lords over, let alone those outside his domain. And it's honestly quite hard for your average person to love a Big Brother-esque figure who you never see in person or receive any sort of meaningful interaction from outside of ultimatums that are delivered via Securitron. And there are a few who work for him or live under him that are actually enthusiastic about his leadership. This makes sense when you consider that the people of New Vegas aren't necessarily citizens, but employees, cogs in House's machine that don't necessarily need to love him in order to serve him. Because for the machine-minded House, that's what human society essentially was to him, a machine. So long as each individual part was doing its job and not messing with the system and its functions, they remained out of Mr. House's radar. He didn't really care what people did with their own time. He only cared that they follow his rules and acted in accordance with his laws, so he might be able to achieve his goals of reaching the stars and giving humanity a fresh start. In the world of Mr. House, the strong survive, the weak perish, and the loyal only remain loyal so long as their own ambitions are being served. As highly organized and calculating as Mr. House seems to be, I have no doubt that over the 100, or perhaps hundreds of years it would take for his society to reach a level where they could colonize the stars, many atrocities would occur in the name of social stability and progress. And the subversive elements within his city that Mr. House would undoubtedly have to deal with over those years would only heighten the probability that he would need to take horrific actions in order to maintain his power base. Another thing to consider is that Mr. House, while being mindful of the future and the necessary steps he needs to take in order to repair humanity and prevent past mistakes from occurring, is still very much ingrained in the past and past ways of thinking. While it's not a bad thing to preserve the past, the seedier elements of that past that Mr. House seems to love and is willing to entertain are not things that one needs to bring into the future. And while Las Vegas is a glitzy paradise of fun and debauchery, idolizing elements like its criminal past and laissez-faire attitude towards crime and corruption aren't going to help humans move past their mistakes. In a similar vein, how is Mr. House's autocratic ruling style going to play out once he eventually launches colonizers into space? Is he going to wire himself into every gadget they have to ensure everything goes smoothly, or are they going to take everything they've learned from this totalitarian leader and the elements of the past he was willing to entertain and corrupt anything they establish with old world ideas that will bring as much doom to them as it brought to the humans of Earth? In many ways, Mr. House's organization is essentially a more sophisticated and forward-thinking version of the NCR. He still takes inspiration from the past, but he's more so trying to build a better future by using past practices as a tool to use in shaping that future, not a rule that's going to continue to dictate how future events are carried out. However, just like with the NCR, there's a lot of folly in that idea, as there's no guarantee that all these aspects of the past that you're using in the short term to build a better future won't carry over into that future. Furthermore, in some respects, as Ulysses and Joshua Graham say in so many words in the game, Mr. House is just Caesar with a bit more class, thought, and care put into his actions. As in many ways,
40 yards on the punt, 2 on the return.
Neil Monster.
Oh, what?
as Caesar is, albeit not nearly as brutal and barbaric. So in essence, Mr. House's ideas might be fine enough, but his execution of them leaves much to be desired. And if anyone came along looking to achieve Mr. House's goals, while also taking into consideration the well-being and health of everyone they ruled over, and not just those crucial to his plan, they'd be immediately preferable to the autocrat, who's bound every person under his thumb to his will. So these are pretty much the reasons why people view Mr. House as the best option available, and also why he's reviled by others. And unfortunately, no matter which opinion you hold, it would seem that in a world where he's the lesser of many evils, you kind of have to take what you can get. However, that doesn't mean that everyone in this universe needs to bow to the will of Mr. House for all eternity and never take steps to better their world and supplant him with something better. At one point in this story, Mr. House points out that democracy is what got them to the point they're at, and that democratic forms of government aren't effective enough to ensure that what happened in the past won't happen again. And yes, as I said earlier, in the short term that might be true, but to place all the power into the hands of one man and trust him with the fate of all humanity is bound to come with some heavy repercussions for all involved. And while democracy certainly has its flaws, especially when you consider that in this universe, the Enclave had perverted democracy to serve their own nefarious ambitions, this makes Mr. House's distrust in democracy not unfounded. But cutting out the input of your fellow man in favor of one man deciding what's best for everyone else is in no way a good course of action to pursue. And again, Mr. House, despite his noble ambitions, is more than worthy of being taken down a peg when the opportunity arises, so humans might be both prosperous and free, not one or the other. Ultimately, Ultimately, whether Mr. House deserves to be considered one of the most vile individuals in the Fallout universe, or the most virtuous despite his flaws, is dictated by your own worldview and your attitudes on the various morally questionable actions House takes in this story. And there's likely never going to be a definitive consensus on just exactly how evil Mr. House is. With all that we've discussed so far in mind, I would say that it's folly to claim that everything he does is righteous, and that he's an infallible character who deserves only to be admired. But it's equally as foolish to claim that he's an abhorrent villain who has nothing to offer this broken world but more villainy and suffering. But that's the beauty of the Fallout universe. Oftentimes you'll find yourself not with villains and heroes, but flawed people in a flawed and broken world, looking to make the best of what they've been given. And whether you choose to see his ambitions through to the end, or bash him over the head with a golf club, Mr. House will ever remain one of the most morally intriguing characters that was ever created.
With Loop earplugs, you can enjoy any event without feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated. But that's not all. They enhance...
Those details are being gathered as we speak, and we see a very large law enforcement presence there. We've seen
I just
ATF,
don't know.
U.S. Marshals,
I don't know
FBI,
what the response to this will be, because I feel like the counter to this is like, oh, National Guardsmen didn't even stop the leftist violence. Like they'll say like this is Antifa left violence, and then they'll say if the National Guardsmen couldn't stop this leftist. What is happening? Okay, I take it back. Maybe this is a pretty big story. I thought it was like, I did not realize it was an issue. I don't usually cover breaking news, but what is happening here? We'll start here.
A live view of that area, a block from the White House on 17th and I Northwest. You see from the other angle we showed a moment ago where police were unfolding yellow tape, you could see...
I'm going back to China, bro.
The Eisenhower Executive Office building, which is right next to the White House. And Chief, this is typically an area that is very busy, not only with folks who work there, but also with tourists. Given that it is a holiday week, you imagine that there are a lot of folks that are visiting D.C. Can you talk specifically about that area near the White House grounds and what it is like from a security perspective?
Well, I mean, it's quiet as far as crime goes. I mean, it is crowded. You have a lot of people that come down to this part of D.C. Obviously, that looks like 17th Street, that one shot that we were looking at there. But busy area, but as far as crime goes, you might have a shoplift or a theft or something like that, and even that doesn't occur with any kind of regularity.
DC police says suspect in custody.
You have so many police departments in the city, and because you're so close to the White House, the patrol footprint is going to overlap with a lot of different agencies in that particular area. Secret Service, DC Police, even Metro Transit. There's not a, if my memory serves me correct, there's a Metro stop not too far from there as well. So there'll be a lot of agencies that are in that area just on a regular basis, not for any particular reason, just on a regular basis.
And as you've been speaking,
Trump down?
we
No.
just got in a statement from the White House saying the White House is aware and actively monitoring this tragic situation, and the president has been briefed. We should note the president is not at the White House right now, currently at his West Palm Beach golf club where he's spending the holiday. But as Boris was talking about, there are so many people in town. Typically, as we see in Washington, D.C., but especially so leading into the Thanksgiving holiday here. I mean, just talk a little bit about how tourists generally should approach the security situation in a place like D.C., where, as you mentioned, there are many different security apparatuses here. There are lots of moving.
It's incredible how condescending you are. What do you mean?
To a situation like this,
about what
should tourists be thinking about as they come here to Washington?
About what's going on right now? I haven't even said anything.
Tourists, I mean, you know,
Chatter might be on rewind right now.
Enjoy the city. I mean, there are obviously going to be some areas that, you know, you're going to see heightened security around the White House, for an example. But for the most part, tourists just come, they visit, they visit with Smithsonian's, they walk by the White House, grab a couple photographs and so forth. But I mean, it's not a difficult town to get around in, and even though there's a heavy
a shooting happened in D.C. In other words, that's what happened.
Boynton Beach started to settle down for a Sunday evening. It was around that time when 38-year-old entrepreneur Michael DiPolito, whose wife was out of town, decided it would be a good idea to hire an escort for the night. Just 35 minutes after calling the service, 26-year-old Dalia Mohammed showed up at his front door. Just 2 weeks after their first acquaintance, Michael filed for divorce from his wife of 7 years and proposed to Dalia with a $20,000 engagement ring. She said yes. It appeared as though the concept of love at first sight wasn't exclusive to fairy tales, and Michael had finally met his princess.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna talk, get some stuff out the way. Alright, cool. I'm gonna tell you how I'm gonna do it and what exactly is gonna be done. Alright. And honestly, you got recommendations. You know what you want, what you know about him. Dude, is he your husband or something? Boyfriend? Your husband? How many have been married? No, for real, because the thing is, you know, after I talked to you today, you know, this phone, garbage. You won't be able to get a hold of us. You know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure that, you know, it's what you want. Sure you want to kill this dude.
Do we really have to?
All right.
You know, it's just, I'd rather be as less, you know, little than with you.
All right. All right.
This would be the first of a total 15 times that Dalia would look directly into the hidden camera. With the naked eye, she would only see a small hole in the corner of the back seat. Not overly suspect, but certainly unusual, and the fact that she continuously glanced at it throughout this setup proved that she harbored suspicion. But although she had doubts, she appeared to have no hesitation in accepting the risk for the potential reward, which in this case would have been the brutal murder of her newlywed husband. In order to recite the entire sequence of events that led up to this moment, including each of the highly calculated and equally corrupt decisions that Dalia made, this would need to be a 3-part series. So for the purpose of time management, here's a quick rundown of the most notable moments. On February 2nd, 2009, Mike and Dalia made it official and got married. According to reports, Dalia appeared to be a very loving wife, always embracing her husband with public displays of affection and telling him how much she adored him, even to the point where people around them started to get uncomfortable. Just over a month into their marriage, in the early morning hours of March 12th, Michael's probation officer knocked at the door, with 2 deputies standing beside him. Michael had been convicted in 2001 for a fraud operation. He served 7 months in prison and was rendered 28 years of probation. This was the first time his PO had showed up unannounced, and Michael was informed that multiple calls had come in from an anonymous source, stating that he was selling steroids and ecstasy from the house. They presented him with a warrant and began to search the premises. If the allegation were proven to be true, Michael could have been sent back to prison for over 10 years. Luckily for him, no illegal substances were found. The next weekend, Dalia suggested a spur-of-the-moment romantic getaway in Palm Beach, and the couple stayed at a luxury hotel that Saturday night. But on the Sunday morning, police were waiting for them in the parking lot, stating they received an anonymous call that he was dealing drugs out of his car. They searched the vehicle, but once again found nothing. 2 weeks later, they went out to dinner, and on their way back to the car, police were waiting for them once more in the parking lot. Only this time they found a small bag of cocaine stashed inside a cigarette pack. Michael immediately broke down in tears, claiming that he had been set up and knew nothing about the drugs. Incredibly, the police believed him and decided not to make an arrest. They later testified that the first reason was due to the conspicuous and unusual hiding place for the cocaine. The second reason was their suspicions of his wife Dahlia, who appeared emotionless as her husband was having a nervous breakdown. On the ride home, as Dahlia was driving, Michael realized that she was the only one who knew where they were going for dinner, and was the only person who had access to the car. So he asked her point blank if she had anything to do with it, and the accusation wasn't taken well. She put the pedal to the floor and got up to 190 on the freeway, all the while screaming at the top of her lungs, claiming to be astonished that he could even accuse her of such a thing. Out of fear of his life, Michael apologized and said that he didn't mean it. The next morning, Dahlia was aware that Michael's suspicions had arisen, and knew she had to divert his attention somehow. So just after making him breakfast, she gave him the incredibly exciting yet completely fictitious news that she was pregnant. Michael was ecstatic. They went out and bought baby books, and the dubious circumstances that occurred the night before appeared to have been forgotten. That very same day, Dahlia contacted her ex-lover, Mike Stanley, a guy she had already used for money and dumped on 3 separate occasions beforehand, yet managed to reel him back in with a single text. After reuniting, Dahlia hatched an extravagant plan. Mike would pose as a lawyer, contact Michael over the phone, and give him the misleading legal advice that in order for him to get off probation, he would need to move his house solely into his wife's name. Astonishingly enough, without doing his own research, Michael decided to take the advice from the mysterious caller at face value, and he and his supposedly pregnant wife then drove to the title company to transfer ownership. Mike Stanley was then cut off without any explanation or even a farewell, and Dahlia then turned to another ex-lover, Mohammed Shihadeh, who she must have thought was a more appropriate option for her next scheme. To cut a long story short, she asked Mohammed to hire a hitman to kill her husband. He neither accepted nor rejected the proposal, but instead of driving to work after their meeting, he drove to the Boynton Police Department to inform them of Dahlia's intentions. The police then inserted a hidden camera into the backseat of Mohammed's vehicle, and had him arrange a second rendezvous with Dahlia to get definitive proof of her intentions. They got it. She was recorded on film handing over a photo of Michael, a photo of the house, and a $3,000 down payment for the assassination. The authorities had more than enough evidence to arrest Dahlia immediately, but to further capture her intent and to really make the charges stick, they set up a second meeting with a supposed hitman, who is actually an undercover narcotics officer. And that brings us back to the very first moment Dahlia looked directly into the hidden camera.
I know I got a picture of the house or whatever.
How soon can we get everything going?
Well, that's up to you.
I mean, I need to tell Mike this week, but like my understanding of everything was that like, you know, I was going to give you what I gave you, and then that was everything. Until after the fact. And then after the fact, I guess you were going to come and, like, find me or whatever. I mean, I'm good for it. Like, it's not like I don't have it.
No,
I mean, I know not to fuck around with you. You know certain things, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you obviously know where I'm at.
I could get it up on Wednesday if you want me to. You know what I'm saying? But I got to do my homework, you know? I gotta know exactly where the place is and how to get out of there, how to get in and out, you understand what the neighbors want. I got to call the cops. You know, report a shooting to see how fast they get to that location. There's a lot of stuff I got to do. It's going to cost me a lot of money.
So if we go ahead and we do it, like, at the house, like, how soon could you do it?
I could do it Wednesday morning. It's going to be like I break into the house. I didn't think he was going to be home because everybody works in the daytime.
Right.
I'm going to think he's at work. Boom, he's not at work, then, you know, he gets 2 in the head. That's it, you know. I take a couple things with me, break a couple windows, make it look like a robbery that went bad. It's all over. I'm gone out of there. The police going to be asking you questions, although they know it's going to be obvious what it is, and they already know, but, you know, they're going to ask questions, you know, because that's how they got to do it. But I don't know how well you handle pressure. You understand? I don't know, you know, because I don't want...
No, I'm not going to, you know, I'm a lot tougher than what I look. I know you see me, you're like, oh, what a cute little girl, whatever. You know, but I'm not.
You are. You're beautiful.
Thank you, but, you know, I just need to make sure everything's going to take care of.
Between now and when it's done, you know, you're not going to have an option to change your mind. Even if you change your mind, I'm talking to him.
There's no changing, there's no, like, I'm determined already. I'm positive, like, 5,000% sure, like, around 6:30, 7 o'clock, he always walks the dog in the morning.
Okay.
He walks the dog across, like, over where the lake is, and our door is always unlocked.
I'll be in the house by 6:30 Wednesday morning. 6 o'clock. All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, and I guess
You'll hear from me.
I'll hear from you.
All right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Bye.
Dahlia got out of the car and drove away, believing her husband would be murdered just 2 days later. She followed orders and went to the gym at 5:43 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Police then knocked on the door and gave Michael the unfortunate news of his wife's intentions before driving him to the police station. Dahlia was called back to the house by a sergeant 1 hour later. Everything about the crime scene was fake, except for the news camera which captured the entire incident.
I'm Sergeant Ramsey. I'm the one that called you. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry to call you. Listen, we had a report of a disturbance at your house, and there were shots fired. Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, man. He's been killed. He's been killed, man. I'm sorry. Listen, try to calm down. Listen, right now, we need to get you to the station.
Oh, they really had fun with this one. Fuck
I can't let you in, man. We have to do our job. If you want us to find this killer, okay, we need you to calm down. I'm going to need you to go with these detectives, okay? Does he have enemies? Is there anyone that would want to hurt him? Okay, who would want to hurt him? Witnesses said they saw a black male running from you. I can't let you see him, ma'am. Ma'am, I cannot do this right now. Ma'am, I can't do it. Detective Yopi, I need you to take her to the station. I can't. Ma'am, go with these detectives. If you want to help your husband, okay? If you want to help your husband, you need to go to the station with these gentlemen and tell us everything you know about who he knows, who he's connected to. Don't worry, we've already taken care of dogs with animal control for right now. Everything's under control. And we'll take care of everything else, okay? Thank you, guys.
Protocol that we have to do with this, which is the wife. We got to advise you of your rights, so you know. Okay? If you don't understand you just tell me, and I'll stop and repeat it. First of all, let me just tell you, I'm sorry for your loss.
I just want to see my husband, please.
All right.
I love my husband. I really love you, too.
No, you don't want to see him.
I just want to see something.
Believe me, you don't. Could you listen, please? This is something, because we're going to videotape, that I need you to sign also. It gives us the right to videotape. You want to read that?
I don't want to be videotaped.
Well, you're being videotaped. That's all part of it.
Whose number is that?
That's your home number.
Oh.
Okay. Listen, is there anybody that you know that you think would want to kill your husband?
My husband's on probation.
For what?
Dahlia recounts Michael's entire criminal history in vivid detail, gives multiple reasons as to why someone would want him dead, and even names a potential suspect, who in reality had nothing to do with the situation, and was only a former business associate.
People weren't happy that he was getting off probation because it's a lot of money. Just a little bit of everything. This was supposed to be something, when he got off probation, it was supposed to be between us. And he went and he told, friends of his, he told, certain people, and everyone kind of talks, and he's constantly running into a lot of the guys that he was on probation with. Like a couple days ago, we ran into someone, and that was a target. I mean, and the guy comes up to us, and he's like with organized crime. It seems like a lot of the guys from Boca are starting to move up here, and we're constantly running into, a lot of the guys that he knows and things like that. So it was a lot of money. It was $191,000 that he had to pay back. So I know certain names, and I know certain families, they were on the news, like the guys that all just went away.
What nationality are you? Spanish?
My mom's from Peru and my dad's from Egypt.
Wow.
Yeah. I want to tell you everything, the whole, so I kind of know what's going on.
I do. Okay. I want to know.
So that's what happened with that. So he didn't know how to tell everybody what was going on with everything.
I don't know if you know, he was shot. He was shot twice. I want you to know all this. Do you know this? Did they tell you out there?
Not exactly. I mean, they told me he was shot. When I was at the gym, I got a phone call. I didn't hear my phone ring, and I called back, and they told me just to please come, that something happened at my house.
Yeah, evidently your husband answered the door, and they took him back upstairs. And in your bedroom...
He had cameras, though. Why would he answer the door? Because he doesn't answer for anybody he doesn't know. I mean, the only person, like his probation officer, is like the only,
I have no idea.
He would not answer the door. We had cameras, like, at our house.
Maybe he knows this person. I didn't know you had cameras because when we got there, some of your neighbors heard the commotion.
We have cameras. The front door has cameras.
Oh,
the back door has cameras. But they don't record.
And they don't record.
Nobody knows, but they don't. We told everybody they record, but they don't record.
Oh, God.
Because he didn't want them to make a hole in the garage.
Right now, I'm going to go out and get in touch with the officers at the scene. I want to see if the house was burglarized.
Okay.
All right, just hang on for a second.
Thank you.
The lead investigator returns 16 minutes later.
Now, you know that I advised you of your rights, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. The game's over with. Okay? There's no more games with you and I. Now we're going to get down to serious business. I want to know if you know this guy. Come here. Bring this guy in here. Get over here. Get over here.
They bring in the undercover cop who remains in character, acting like he's been caught, but refuses to allege Dahlia's involvement. She happily plays along.
You know who this guy is?
No.
You've never seen him before?
I've never seen him before. Ever.
Do you know her?
Put your head up and look at her.
Put your head up.
I've never seen him.
What were you doing coming out of her house? Get him out of here.
Dahlia was able to use her looks to get what she wanted out of life, which of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. People do what they can to get by, which sometimes means relying on physical appearance, and in some cases they have no other option. Yet the majority of those who navigate life in this manner do so without intentionally hurting anyone. Dahlia went out of her way to not only hurt, but to literally slaughter the person whom she had tricked into falling in love with her, and for no other reason than monetary gain. She hadn't come from a broken home, nor was she a battered wife. There were no mitigating circumstances whatsoever, only the cold-blooded pursuit to get what she wanted, how she wanted, impartial to the suffering she would cause as a result. In the next moments, her karmic debt will have finally caught up, and for perhaps the first time in her adult life, neither sex appeal nor her fabricated charm will be enough to save her from the consequences of her actions.
You're going to jail today for solicitation of murder. You're under arrest. That's an undercover police officer. We filmed everything that you did, recorded everything that you did. You're going to jail for solicitation of first-degree murder of your husband.
I didn't do anything.
Did you hear what I just told you?
I heard what you said, but I didn't.
Listen to me. Everything has been recorded. You were photographed in the convertible when you sat his car in the front of CVS. What do you want to do? What do you want to do here?
I didn't do anything.
Listen to me.
I didn't do anything.
You're going to jail.
I didn't do anything. Please, I didn't do anything.
Tell me you didn't do anything?
I didn't do anything.
You're going to jail today. As soon as I'm done, they're going to come in here and handcuff you and take you to the Palm Beach County Jail, book you for solicitation of first-degree murder on your husband. Your husband is well and alive.
Thank God.
Oh, yeah, thank God.
Can I see him?
No, he doesn't want to see you.
I don't want to see him.
He doesn't want to see you.
Please.
You better quit your playing. Listen to me. I want you to quit your acting and get this over with.
You know what?
Yes, you are. Okay. You know what? You need a real good attorney. You need a real good attorney because we're going to show them the film where you say you're 5,000% sure you want him dead. You think I made that up? You think I made that up? That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm talking with you. When I leave this room, no other officer will ever talk to you again. Next time we see you is when you're in trial. Now, you can make it right here, or you're going to trial, and you're going to do life in prison. If you want to cooperate with us, whatever you want to do. It's over and done once I walk out. I'm not coming back in to talk to you. And no one else is either. What do you want to do before I leave here? Because the next officer comes here, going to handcuff you and take you to the jail.
I want to see my husband, please.
No, he doesn't want to see you. He doesn't want to see you. I'm leaving now. Can I have an officer come in here and cuff the person?
I don't know what's going on, please.
arrest report, close stage first degree murder.
Can
you sort of stand up?
Stand up, please.
Dahlia is then granted her fraudulent wish and comes face to face with her husband.
Oh my God!
He's alive.
Come here, please. Come here. Mike, come here. Come here, please. Come here.
Can't fix it.
Why not? I didn't do anything to you. Mike, come here, please. Come here.
Okay. Mike, we'll take her back to both of you, please.
Dahlia was given roughly 15 minutes in her cell to calm down and have reality sink in. She was then brought back to the interrogation room, where two less confrontational detectives would pursue a confession. They were hoping the immediate switch from hostility to patience would influence her compliance.
Have you been advised of your rights before? Does this, your Miranda rights?
Yeah, but I wanted to make a phone call.
Okay, earlier this morning, Sergeant Sheridan read you your rights from that card, right? And you understood your Miranda rights, your Fifth Amendment rights?
Yeah, but I wanted to make a phone call.
Okay, so the phone call, we will let you do that later. Not right now, though.
But while I'm still here.
Yeah, later on we will. Okay?
Did you understand your rights, or you didn't understand them?
I wasn't really paying attention to anything.
Okay.
I said yes to everything.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and read them again, okay? And if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask me and I'll explain them to you, okay?
Okay, you understand your Fifth Amendment rights now? All of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I go? I didn't feel comfortable going in the other one. I'm sorry, I will go on.
No problem.
You mind if I call you Dahlia?
Yeah, please.
All right. Do you understand what happened today? What's going on here?
A little.
Okay.
Now, slowly, I'm understanding a little bit better.
What's your understanding?
I was told one thing, and now it's like slowly, like all these things start. I don't really know what happened.
Do you know that you are arrested today? You're being arrested.
That part I understood.
Okay. Do you know what for?
Not really, no.
You don't know the charge?
No, nobody said anything.
Okay, go ahead and tell her the charge out.
Okay. You're being arrested for soliciting to commit murder. Okay, which that means is you attempted to hire someone to kill somebody else, meaning your husband. Okay.
I never done that.
Okay, but that's what you're being charged with.
Okay.
And we have plenty of evidence to back it up. Okay? So, with your rights in mind, we want to give you an opportunity to do some soul searching maybe, and maybe get a lot off your chest and tell us the truth. That's what we want to hear.
The evidence against her was overwhelming, hence the lack of interrogation techniques being initiated. The detectives feel that this is an open and shut case, and whether the suspect chooses to confess at this moment or not, they believe the eventual outcome will be the same.
I mean, this has been worked for a couple days now. It's not just the first day we're doing this, reference to this case, and we have a lot of information to support our charge. It's just not a quick little thing. So, you know, we don't know when you're lying to us and all that. We just want to hear the truth. I mean, it's done. It's over with now, you know, and this is your opportunity to tell us the truth. That's all we want to hear, and we know the truth. So, I know it's hard to commit to that, but now's your time, you know. Do you have anything to say about this?
I want to talk to my husband.
Okay, well, you can't talk to your husband. He's not here right now. We let him go home. He's taking care of the house and the dogs, so.
The good thing about this whole thing is that nobody got killed. The tragedy was prevented today. You could look at it that way, you know? That's simple.
a big tragedy. I mean, someone's life. So everything's on tape, Dahlia. There's no denying it. You know, everything's on tape, and it's not a bluff. So
you gotta understand this, okay? Dahlia, listen to me for a second, okay?
Didn't do anything.
Listen to me for a second, okay? This is on our first day, okay? It's definitely not our second day, all right? This is an ongoing investigation, all right? Not only do we have your videotape, we have every conversation that you've had leading to this point, all right? So for you to sit here and deny that you haven't done anything, it's not going to help. Every little thing that you've done since this started, we've been involved in it. Do you understand that? I mean, I'm just telling you the truth. That's the truth.
Just want to go home.
Well, unfortunately, you're not going home, okay? You're looking at some serious charges here. Do you understand that you made the attempt to hire somebody to kill your husband? That's how serious this is. Okay, you can sit here and shake your head and deny it, but I'm going to tell you right now, all right, when the jury and the judge sees that videotape of you having this conversation, making a deal, all right, that's how far you went, all right? It's not about denying it. It wasn't me, I didn't do anything, because the video, the audio, it's not going to lie, all right, and all the evidence that we have collected through all this investigation.
You sound like a fool right now denying this, because like my partner just said, everything's on tape, video and audio. I know, but you're not going home. You see, you're being arrested, so you're not going home.
So what do I have to do to go home? It's like to go home.
I know, but you can't. It's impossible. You're going to the Palm Beach County Jail after this. You can't go home. You're being arrested. This is a game. In your mind, it might be a little game, but this is very, very serious. Murder? Are you kidding me?
Dahlia refuses to give any sort of acknowledgement whatsoever, even after being confronted with the hidden camera footage. She was then taken to the Palm Beach Detention Center, professing her innocence the entire way. When she finally got to jail, she accepted the offer to make a phone call. Now, try and imagine yourself in her position. Now think of the absolute last person on planet Earth that you would call at that moment.
Hello? Hey, it's me. Yeah, what's up?
Nothing, Mike. Can you please come here?
Hey, listen, I don't want to fight with you. Honestly, I can't help you. Don't you understand what just happened?
What they're saying is not true.
How is that possible?
Like, I'm sitting here. It's not true. It's not possible. You wouldn't even give me 2 minutes to talk to you, but it's not possible. What they're saying is not true.
How in the hell did I hear it and see it?
I heard what you heard. It's not true. I heard what you heard and I saw what you saw. Everything they showed you, they showed me.
And how is it not? How are you telling me that?
I am giving you my word that it's not true.
What do you? I couldn't help you if I wanted to.
Like, please, I need an attorney. Can you please help me? It's not true.
Your brother was here, and I spoke to him, and he's going to go talk to your mom. I called them for you already, right?
This is not true.
I tell you, too. Look, how do you explain what I saw and heard?
Like, I am limited on my phone call. You know more than anybody. It's not true. Just give me time so I can talk to you.
What did it say? I saw it. I heard it.
I saw what you saw, and I heard what you heard.
Okay, what the you said you wanted to have me killed. I heard that.
That's not true. That is not
true. How is it not true?
How can you believe that?
I heard your voice.
How can you believe it?
What isn't the point? I heard you say it.
It's not. I heard what you heard, and it's not.
What did I hear then? I heard you say
I heard the tape. Okay, I heard the tape, and I saw pictures, and I saw the whole 9 yards. I saw all of it.
So why would you meet a guy in a parking lot? Explain that.
I'm sitting here on the phone. I will tell you when I see you in person. Please.
I can't come there anyway. I'm not allowed there.
That's not true. Who said that? They tell you that on purpose. That's not true.
I don't know what you could tell me. Even if, let's pretend, I said, oh, it's all better. I can't. They're charging your ass. Don't you get it?
Like, I didn't do anything. Please.
I don't know what to say to you. I can't help you. It's out of my hands.
You're not even trying.
What am I supposed to do?
You're supposed to have me an attorney, please, so I can talk to you.
I saw you with this guy in the truck or whatever the f*** it was. I saw it. I heard your voice clearly. What? I don't understand.
Did not say those things. Period.
So how did they get your voice on that tape recorder?
Like, I'm limited with my time, please.
You gotta be kidding me, man. Stallion, I heard you say that shit.
Like,
okay?
I'm telling you right now, okay?
You can't fix it. How are you going to tell me that you didn't say it, you didn't do it? When I saw you say it and I saw you do it.
Do you have any idea how I was when they told me what supposedly happened to you, how I got and how I was and how everything? Can you meet me in person so I can talk to you?
No.
Why?
Why should I?
Because you know me. I never, ever, 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 ever in my wildest dreams ever want that for you, ever.
Well, you said it, Diane.
No, I did not. No, I did not say anything. Period. I didn't say anything.
I don't know how you're going to actually have the nerve to sit here and lie to me now. I can't help you even if I wanted to. Do you get it?
Why don't you want to?
It's out of my f***ing hands.
You're not even trying. It's different if you're trying. You're not even trying.
What can I possibly do for you? I don't get it. What can I do?
You're not even trying.
Trying what? I'm sitting here like a dumbass.
Please, okay, they're getting ready to take me again.
Daddy, I'm going to give you some advice, and you need to listen. You're going to be ran around in there for a little while, a couple days. You need to just try and relax and just go with it. And keep to yourself and don't say a lot.
Like, I love you. Don't do this to me. I'm kidding. No, everybody treated me awful, sir. I didn't do anything to you. You know me. Everyone here is being awful to me.
I can't help you. There's nothing I can do to help you. You know what I'll do? You know what I'll do for you? Seriously?
What?
You sign my house back over to me. I'll help you, Mom, immensely. Give me my house back. That's it.
That's it what?
I'll have the papers sent over to you somehow. You'll sign them over to me, and then I will help your mother. Okay?
I'm not signing anything.
I know you wouldn't sign anything. I knew that wasn't going to happen, so I can't help you.
Okay? That's what you're thinking about. I'm sitting here rotting, and you're thinking about...
Now you start having me killed. I just offered to help you, and again, you have the balls to say no to me. You just basically said f*** you to me, which is hilarious considering your situation and considering what just happened today.
Mikey DiPolito!
Fingerprinted now.
Dahlia called her mother soon after, who was already informed of the situation by Michael and appeared to be a little bit more understanding over the whole situation.
Hello? Mom, I'm in jail.
I know, Dahlia. I know. I find out.
I need you to call Mike in New York.
Okay, who do you want me to call? What is it?
I need you to call Mike in New York, please.
I called already and I called that. Everybody knows. What is it you want me to do? Where are you exactly?
I'm in the county jail. I need you to call. What did Mike say? Is he coming?
Everybody's coming, Dahlia. We're going to go ahead and get your lawyers, okay? Don't worry. Where are you? Are you in Gun Club?
Yes, I'm here, Mom. Mike did this to me.
Okay, Dahlia.
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything.
You didn't. I know you didn't. I know you didn't. Where are you? You in Gun Club?
Yes, I'm here in Gun Club. And I heard Mike is at the house. I want him out of my house.
Okay, well, right now we're going to need to have a lawyer first,
It's my house. The title's in my name.
All right. Okay, don't worry about that right now.
Dahlia spent 20 months in jail before standing trial in April 2011. Her defense was bizarre. They claimed Michael DiPolito was a fan of reality TV, and the murder-for-hire plot was a hoax, just so he could get on television.
I'm just having fun with it. Come on, I'm with you.
You're having fun with me? Let me ask you something. Is this fun, Mr. DiPolito?
This sucks.
Okay. Was it fun when you got arrested?
No.
Was it fun when you went to court?
Horrible.
Okay. So, is there anything funny about this proceeding at all, Mr. DiPolito?
The questions you're asking me, some of them, yeah.
You don't like them, do you?
It's ridiculous. We're not here because of me. Well, I might as well, you might as well put me up next. I mean, what are we doing here?
The verdict came a month later on May 13th. The jury needed just 3 hours of deliberation.
Verdict, we the jury find as follows. As to count 1, we find the defendant guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. If you find the defendant guilty, do you find that there is a firearm included in the solicitation? Yes.
And you and I have spoken previously about you wanting to share some comments with the court as the judge considers the appropriate sentence in this case?
Yes, I do. I have no words to explain why this unfortunate event happened. And I am sorry that it did. I don't support what it happened. But I know that you have the power in deciding what happens to the next phase of Dalia's life, in showing mercy. In life, we make mistakes. Sometimes we will deserve a second chance. Dalia's not dangerous. Your Honor, I'm asking you, I'm begging you, please, to have some mercy with her. Thank you for listening to me.
Where do I begin? Let me just start off by saying, when I married my wife, I was very much in love with her. And I thought we were doing things that normal married people do. And I was a very good husband. And I provided everything we needed. And, that being said, lo and behold, that wasn't the case. I don't know who these people are talking about, but it's not that girl. And I feel bad. I don't even want to be here. Since this started, I've always put my hand out. Give me my house. Let's be done with it. I'll beg the judge to even do whatever. I don't personally gain anything from this. The difference between me and I guess what's going on here, I went to prison. You know how I got there? I said I did it. Yeah, I did it. Let's get this over with and handle it. That hasn't happened here. I mean, this girl doesn't feel sorry for anything. She still doesn't think she did anything. And believe me, I don't want to get up here and be nasty, but the reality is I sit and listen to this. Even today, we're talking about a retrial? Retrial for what? I mean, what is it we're doing? Who didn't understand what happened here? They still don't want to admit anything happened. Nothing bad happened. It's all good. Let's just all go home and it's fine. I'm not okay. My father died. I was supposed to have been able to travel to see him. I didn't get to see my dad. My dad's dead. And, that was part of my plan. Get off probation, go see my family, spend time with my father. If she would have owned it like a normal person and would have owned up to something, I would respect that. But instead, when I get to court, I hear that I want a reality television show. As soon as we walk out here, they're filing for an appeal. You know why? Because they think everybody in this room is stupid. That's why. Because we're all stupid, and they're smarter than us. And nobody did anything. And God, she's a great girl. When I met her, I thought all those things. I don't want to offend anybody, and believe me, I feel sorry for everybody that's in here crying. But you know what? I got to feel sorry for myself. Nobody's helping me. My mother had a nervous breakdown. I'm like, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I just don't know how I'm feeling some days. And it's just not fair, like I said, and I mean this from my heart. I wish we weren't here. I wish she would have did anything but what she did.
The jury's found you guilty, Ms. DiPolito, of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. So my task is to figure out what an appropriate sentence would be, somewhere between 48 months and 30 years in the Department of Corrections. How do I rehabilitate you from what you have done? And I think that's a function of spinning your moral compass. I think your moral compass is askew. I think that it's something that it's not like getting a drug addict off drugs or an alcoholic off alcohol. But rehabilitation, I hope that occurs as part of this sentence. A big variable, and the one that's most conspicuous, is punishment. You impose a sentence to punish bad behavior, criminal behavior, and that's going to be a large component of this sentence. And also a valid factor in imposing a sentence is retribution. And retribution is giving society the vent, the outlet, the sense of that person got what he or she had coming. So I consider those factors and try to figure out what weighs most in tailoring a sentence for you. And it has to do with the facts of the case, and it has to do with who you are and what you were thinking. And here's the way I see it. I think that a lot of it is what were your motivations? What were you doing? What were you thinking when that was going on? And I just come to the most obvious conclusion that you were motivated by greed, by avarice. There's no evidence that you were being beaten and you were defending yourself, that you were a battered wife, that you were an alcoholic, that you were the victim of child abuse, that you were somehow acting in defense of yourself, even under a misguided notion. There's none of that here. All of your conduct was just for self-indulgence and just trying to take every bit of money that you could get a hold of so that you could go on and live this fast life. In as early as March, you began this relentless campaign to get rid of your husband. First, you're thinking, well, I'll just get him sent off to prison and that would be good enough. You used guile and sophistry to dupe others into your web of deception. You were the puppet master that was pulling all the strings. You weren't acting at the direction of somebody else. You weren't under the influence of somebody else. You were the one calling the shots. And you were engaged in a course of conduct not over some momentary lapse of good judgment. This wasn't like, I ran a red light, I shouldn't have done that. Or, what was I thinking? I had the gun in my hand and I shot it because I was angry. It was weeks and months that you continued with these different schemes to try to rid yourself of your husband that was just something out of a novel. And it was horrible to watch it unfold as the trial testimony came out. It was pure evil. After those attempts to have your husband taken out of the picture by way of sending him back to prison for a long period of time, and when you learned that it wasn't good enough to have the house in your name, that if you wanted to sell the house, you were still going to need his signature, I think that's when it started to turn to even more sinister behavior. Mr. Salnick indicates that, being remorseful or saying I'm sorry really doesn't mean anything. And I disagree. I think, even today, Mr. DiPolito is still your husband. I think that I'm sorry, it's my fault, I did it, would have gone a long way. Not only for his healing, but it would have perhaps suited your own purpose. But I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard an ounce of remorse. The opposite of that. When confronted with the obvious facts, the most powerful testimony as to who you are is when you were in the police station and your husband walked by and looked in and you were begging him, tell him this is all wrong, tell him this is all wrong. And then later on the telephone, you were saying, he was confronting you with the evidence. I saw the tapes. I saw the videotape of you trying to have me killed. And you just cold-bloodedly said to him, I saw what you saw, and I'm telling you that's not true. And it was astonishing, the cold-blooded denial that you're willing to go to try to avoid the obvious. You have a certain facet of who you are with your mom, your sister, your brother, and they see the good in you, as siblings and parents should. But who you are when no one's looking, other than a camera in a police car, is quite different. And I think that peers deeply into your soul and speaks volumes of the way you were presenting this, and it was quite chilling to witness that. Based upon those factors, then, Ms. DiPolito, I'll accept the verdict of the jury. I'll find you guilty. I'll adjudicate you guilty. and I'm sentencing you to 20 years in the Department of Corrections.
Dalia's first encounter with retribution was a big one, yet it didn't last long. The sentence was thrown out on a technicality 1 month later, and she was able to remain under house arrest for 6 years awaiting her next trial. Her second trial began in 2016.
Dalia DiPolito takes the stand with an unusual defense.
Dalia says it was all part of a plan she hatched with her then-husband, Michael DiPolito, and former lover, Mohammed Shahadi, to get famous. Her now ex-husband, Mike DiPolito, says he couldn't wait to see what she'd say in court.
Let me know when she's going. I'll be sitting in the back with popcorn. I'd love to see this.
In an exclusive pretrial interview with 2020 this past December, DiPolito said she's just misunderstood.
Who is Dalia DiPolito?
Understanding, sweet, and compassionate.
Manipulative, conniving. I got more than 3. Malicious.
Baited, enticed, and entrapped.
Her attorney, Brian Claypool, says Dalia is the innocent victim of a fame-hungry police department.
What the police department did is they found out she's an attractive woman. In their minds, they're like ching, ching, ching. This is a perfect skit. There's no question about it that the Boynton Beach Police Department was dead set on manufacturing a crime here.
How damaging are these tapes to your client?
They are damaging because people have formed opinions.
Our job in the second trial is to provide the proper context for the jury to see that this is not really what it looks like.
Claypool claims she only kept up the act because Mohammed threatened her with a gun.
He threatened to hurt me and to hurt my family.
Did you believe he would?
Absolutely, yes.
So she was threatened to act out a hoax on a videotape? I mean, do you understand how ridiculous that sounds to a lot of people watching this?
Yeah, that's not ridiculous. You've got a 6'2", 230-pound man with a gun
saying you will do this YouTube hoax or else?
Right.
5,000% sure, not 100% sure, not 1,000% sure, but 5,000% sure. How do you explain that?
I look at that video and I see somebody who's struggling with whether she's really sure.
She's struggling? What?
Why? Well,
how is she struggling if she's 5,000% sure?
Well, you may find that humorous, but when I hear people say they're sure, I'm 110% sure.
Why didn't she just tell police her version of what happened?
I've asked her that question too. Oh, yeah, everybody. Hey, Sergeant, this was just a YouTube thing we were putting together. She was in a state of shock.
I couldn't react. I just completely froze. I wanted to get out of there, and I felt paralyzed. The tape was a show. It was a tape. That was the purpose of it.
You were acting in those tapes?
Yes.
But you're telling the truth now?
Yes.
Why should we believe you?
Because it's what happened. It's the truth.
State of Florida versus Dalia A. DiPolito, defendant. Verdict. We, the jury, find as follows. As to count 1, we find the defendant guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder as charged in the information. So say we all, the 16th day of June, 2017, in West Palm Beach.
Dalia DiPolito was sentenced to 16 years in prison on July 21st, 2017. She was not given the possibility of parole, and her release date is set for August 24th, 2032. Her appeal was rejected by the Florida Supreme Court in September of 2019, and her sentence is now definitive. She is currently being held at the Lowell Correctional Institution in Gainesville, Florida, where she is expected to remain until the day of release. She will be 50 years old. In the year 1980, on Wednesday the 9th of July at exactly 11:54 p.m., a little girl named Jodi Ann Arias was born in the city of Salinas, California, and completely unbeknownst to her doting parents, was destined to become one of the most infamous people in the United States of America. From what we know about her behavioral sequences, and despite what her defense team would later want you to believe, there's virtually nothing in Jodi's childhood that can be linked as a contributing factor to what she would eventually be capable of. The only thing worth mentioning was that she dropped out of high school in the 11th grade to pursue a career in photography, but it went nowhere. In February of 2006, at 26 years of age, she began a new job as a salesperson for a network marketing company called Prepaid Legal, and it was through this occupation where she crossed paths with fellow sales representative Travis Alexander, a 28-year-old practicing Mormon from Arizona, who also worked part-time as a motivational speaker.
When you get someone to the briefing, they say no, that counts. When you get someone fully exposed and they say no, that counts. Every time you get one of those, cross one off the list. By the time the 100th one's crossed off the list, you won't be able to spend the money.
He was a very charismatic young man, which immediately caught Jody's attention. They met at a business conference in September of 2006 and began a curious relationship from that point forward. To cut a long story short, Jody was in love, and Travis was not. They broke up after just 5 months, but soon after the split, Jody moved from her grandparents' home in Yreka, California, into an apartment just 2 blocks from Travis's house in Mesa, Arizona. She was at that moment labeled the crazy stalker ex by all of Travis's friends, and although Travis agreed, he would continue having sex with her out of pure convenience. She would show up unannounced on countless occasions, sometimes in the middle of the night, and Travis would let her in every time. It became somewhat of a routine, and a dysfunctional situation that neither were happy with. Travis, although he enjoyed the sex, essentially wanted her out of his life, while Jody desperately wanted a serious relationship. And going off the myriad of entries in her diary, she firmly held on to the belief that they were meant to be together. In late May of 2008, however, she would ultimately have a change of heart. Travis had a work retreat planned to Cancun, Mexico for July 10th. It was all paid for by his employer and allowed him to take a friend with him. Jody knew about this and believed, or at the very least hoped, that she would be the one going. Yet in the last week of May, it became known that Travis was taking another woman instead, a Mormon girl by the name of Mimi Hall, someone that Travis had been romantically interested in for some time. When Jody found out, it would be safe to assume that she was heartbroken. It would be even safer to assume that she was absolutely enraged, and the collective opinion is that a specific thought process began to emerge in her mind, one that forged a psychological justification for a certain decision. On June 4th, 2008, 6 days before Travis was set to leave for Mexico, Jody would once more show up unannounced. All we know for sure is that they had sex and took explicit pictures of each other using Travis's new camera. At roughly 5 p.m., Travis would get in the shower, and Jody would begin taking pictures of him using the same camera. Then, moments after this picture was taken, Jody would stab Travis a total of 27 times. She would also cut his throat and shoot him in the face. During the onslaught, Travis's camera took 2 accidental photographs. The first was taken as Jody dropped it during the onset of the attack. The second was taken as she kicked it by mistake while moving Travis's body. It showed Jody's foot and a fatally wounded or deceased Travis. The amount of time that passed from the 2 photographs was 62 seconds. Jody then spent an estimated 45 minutes cleaning down the crime scene to make sure none of her DNA was left behind. This included wiping down the victim's body with a cup of water and a cloth. She also deleted the pictures from Travis's camera before throwing it in the washing machine. She would then drive back out into the desert and leave Travis a voicemail for the purpose of placing herself away from the crime scene and giving herself an alibi.
I know Leslie called you, so I already talked to her, so you can call her back if you want, but it's not necessary. My phone died, so I wasn't getting back to anybody. And what else? Oh, and I drove 100 miles in the wrong direction, over 100 miles, thank you very much. So yeah, remember New Mexico? It was a lot like that. Only you weren't here to prevent me from going into the 3 digits, so fun. Tell you all about that later. Also, we were talking about, when we were talking about your upcoming travels my way, I was looking at the May calendar, so I'm all confused. Heather and I are going to see Othello on July 1st, and we would love for you to accompany us. Let me know, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. End of message.
Jody would then drive to another man's house in Utah by the name of Ryan Burns and stayed the night. He would later testify that nothing seemed off about Jody's behavior, only that they kissed and engaged in sexual intercourse. Travis's body was discovered by Mimi and her friends 5 days later, the day before they were supposed to leave to Cancun together.
How long were you there trying to get into the house?
A couple of minutes. I banged on the door, ringed the doorbell over and over again. Nobody. Travis's friend on the phone suggested that we go in through the garage and look for him in the house. And then as soon as they said that they saw blood, that there's blood everywhere, I stopped looking and said, he's dead. And so immediately I called the police.
After the news of Travis's death broke the following day, Jody called the police and offered to help with the investigation. She was then transferred to the lead detective, Esteban Flores, of the Mesa Police Department. The most notable detail of the phone call was that Jody agreed to provide a sample of her DNA. Over the following months, found, forensics were able to uncover the deleted photos from Travis's camera, and despite her best efforts, discovered Jody's DNA all over the crime scene. During this time, oblivious to the evidence that was building against her, Jody would post multiple pictures of her and Travis on Facebook, alongside emotional messages to Travis himself. She even sent his family flowers and a letter expressing her grief over his death. The Mesa Police Department launched their case against Jody on July 15th, 41 days after the murder. Detective Flores would be the one to conduct her interrogation. He had spoken with her once over the phone and was present when she was fingerprinted and swabbed for DNA. The Siskiyou County Police arrested Jody at her grandparents' house at 7:35 a.m. and only said they had a warrant for her arrest without giving further information. She was placed in handcuffs and didn't once ask what she was being arrested for in the 6-minute drive to the local police station. What makes Jodi Arias stand out among the many cases in the realm of true crime is the manner in which she attempts to navigate the system. She seems to believe that if she presents herself in a certain way and adopts a very specific character with very specific traits, it will give her the best chance at evading the consequences of her actions. In her mind, this character is a soft-spoken, sweet-natured, God-fearing individual. Yet to everyone else, is quite possibly the most universally annoying person to ever abide in the history of existence. In the next moment, Jody will hear Detective Flores approaching the room. She will then abruptly place her head on the table to make it appear as if she's sleeping. She will now notice the detective has instead walked past the room and then revert back to her regular sitting position. For whatever reason, Jody wants to appear as if she's in a far calmer state than she actually is. She wants the detective to believe that she's relaxed enough to doze off, when she is in fact extremely alert and anticipating his arrival. She places her head back on the table to feign a placid state once more, and you'll notice her left shoulder hovers in what looks like a very uncomfortable position for just over a minute. She then hears the external door open, at which point she takes a deep breath and then fully rests onto the table.
Let me get those off you. So you remember me?
Of course I do.
I traveled all the way up here to Kentucky because, I've been working on Travis's case ever since it happened. Okay, and I know exactly when it happened, when he was killed. I know a lot of details. And just recently we found quite a bit of evidence, and I'll discuss that with you. The main thing that I'm looking for, though, is answers on why certain things happened and why they went so far, and also get your statements.
She's been brought to a police station in handcuffs and now just told her arrest is concerning the death of her ex-lover. An innocent person sitting in her position would want immediate clarification as to what exactly is going on. Jody doesn't inquire further, just gently accepts to cooperate after being given a very vague, yet highly accusative clarification of the situation.
A lot of details on this case that haven't been released to the public and not even to Travis's family. And those details are known only by us and the person who did it. Okay, and that's one of the reasons I'm here, is because I believe that you know some of these details. And I think you can help us.
I would love to help you in any way that I can.
Okay. Because we're here at the police department, the sheriff's department here in, is it Siskiyou County? That's what it's called. Okay. And you're considered under arrest or detained, you're not free to go. And I'm a police officer. I have to read you your rights. Okay? I'm sure you've heard them on TV. I have to read them off this little card here. They're pretty much the same, and I'll explain them to you as we go, okay? And, if there's a question that you don't want to answer, you don't feel comfortable, you can say no, or you can elaborate as much as you want. It's completely up to you. It's at your speed. I don't want to pressure you.
Recorded at all, or should we?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a recording or something.
I don't know if these are voice recorders. I noticed them. They have video, they have audio, or batteries, or what?
I don't think they're on.
Hindsight allows us to recognize this is simply an attempt to appear innocent. She seems to think that if she appears confident enough to recommend the use of an outdated voice recorder, that it will seem as though she has nothing to hide in the eyes of the detective. But it's just bizarre. If the detective wasn't already certain of Jody's guilt, he would most certainly become suspicious at this moment.
It's okay. Yeah, I haven't touched those or anything, but,
Jody's mind would be racing here, yet she desperately wants her exterior self to appear calm. She's so focused on having this nonchalant disposition that she completely fails to realize her behavior doesn't match the situation whatsoever. She's in a state of hyperarousal while feigning a state of composure, and the end result just looks very strange. It gives reason for her unusual infatuation with a voice recorder, and also for her oncoming sitting position, which really can't be described, only compared to a sea lion peeking over a rock.
And they're not on, so what I want to do is just get to the bottom of it. Everybody wants to know, okay? And, so I'm going to ask you some questions. You can voluntarily answer them if you want. Okay, is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine.
There was some question about you being, well, let's start with this. What have you been up to since Travis's death? What have you been doing?
Well, I've been working. I haven't been really working in prepaid legal. There's not a whole lot here in this marketplace, which is...
It's kind of small here.
It's small here, and really that could be seen as an opportunity rather than a hindrance, because that just means the market is untapped in a large way. So I could have if I wanted to, but I'm kind of like a deer in the headlights when it comes to prepaid legal. I just have a fear of just approaching people.
You'll come to notice that Jody will go off on these unrelated tangents anytime she has the slightest chance to do so. It's a recurring theme in interrogations for when the suspect is facing serious charges, and the common theory is that it's an attempt at gaining a momentary escape from what is likely the most terrifying moment of their life. Going into detail about topics completely unrelated to the situation at hand essentially delays the onset of their new reality. Forensic psychology views this as a form of denial. The detective subtly nudges her away from the theme of network marketing and onto the topic of Travis. She starts off with a Facebook post she made in his memory.
I realized looking back on it that it kind of sounded immature. It's more like my Dear Travis kind of letter. And so I took it down because...
personal?
Yeah, some of it was deep and personal. Nothing too personal, nothing inappropriate. I just felt funny. I think because I'm a photographer, I tend to communicate more through pictures, so I posted a ton of pictures that I had of him. I have a ton more that I just can't access right now. And videos and things that I know his family would want, but...
She then explains how it's hard to talk about Travis's death with the guy she's now dating.
And we've been talking a lot, and we try not to talk about that because it's kind of like, ugh. And plus, Travis is my ex-boyfriend, but at the same time, he's my friend. So while I'm mourning my friend, how do you talk to your new potential, possible, maybe person that you might start dating about your friend, even though he was your ex-boyfriend? So it's kind of a gray area.
The detective knows she'll happily trail off until the morning comes, so he cuts her off and locks her into the situation at hand.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people, and everybody's pointing a finger at you. Everybody is saying, I don't understand what happened to Travis. I don't know who killed him. But you need to look at Jody. And sometimes the simplest answers are the correct ones.
One of the most fascinating parts of this interrogation is how long the detective allows Jody to cling on to hope. For the first 45 minutes, she will be terrified, yet still believe there's a chance she will be going home at the end of it. The detective will hint at her suspicions and culpability in a gradual manner, yet not directly accuse her until a much later stage. Dangling the idea of hope above someone's head while simultaneously hinting at the grim future that awaits them would perhaps be considered cruel in most other circumstances. Yet on this occasion, it is tolerated for a tactical purpose, which is to allow for as much divulgence from the suspect as possible. Her fear will cause her to panic, not enough to the point where she completely locks up, but just enough so that she continuously tries to claw at her own salvation, and in the process will divulge information that will be extremely damaging to her defense later on.
And that's one of the reasons I started looking at you a little bit closer. And over the last month or so, I've gotten into Travis's life, talked to all his friends, his family. I got a really good understanding of who he is now. And I got a very good understanding of your relationship with him. Obviously you weren't boyfriend, girlfriend anymore, but you were still having a sexual relationship, which,
Does his family know about that? Just curious.
No, his family doesn't know anything. Yeah.
I'm interested in protecting how he is remembered as well. And
just for the purpose of integrated context, at Jody's trial, she would label Travis a sexual deviant, a domestic abuser, and a pedophile.
He truly had feelings for you. And for some reason, he felt that the relationship between you and him was somewhat unhealthy, but he couldn't stop it. And I assume it's probably maybe the same way you felt about him, or maybe you didn't understand why he didn't believe it was healthy.
no, I didn't think it was healthy either, spiritually at least, and probably emotionally, but mostly spiritually. And I think that kind of, once you have something that's not healthy spiritually, it filters through all aspects of your life.
Her dialogue alters from spirituality to her work history and then to her finances before moving on to her family. Bear in mind she wasn't asked about any of this.
Financially, I wasn't doing well. I missed my family. I moved away shortly after high school, and I come back to visit, but I realized over the years I've missed out on a lot of things. My little brother and sister. I missed out on just their karate